you're stuck in a hurricane. 'Cause everything around you just keeps on turning. I can see you searching for an escape. The fire in your heart, it just keeps on burning. Keeps on, it just keeps on burning. Keeps on, it just keeps on burning. Keeps on, it just keeps on burning. Fire in your heart, it just keeps on burning. Don't worry, you got the future on your mind. No hurry, let's take it one day at a time. Feeling like you're stuck in a hurricane. 'Cause everything around you just keeps on turning. I can see you searching for an escape. The fire in your heart, it just keeps on burning. Keeps on, it just keeps on burning. Keeps on, it just keeps on burning. Keeps on, it just keeps on burning. Fire in your heart, it just keeps on burning. Don't worry, you got the future on your mind. No hurry, let's take it one day at a time. Don't worry, you got the future on your mind. No hurry, let's take it one day at a time. Don't worry, you got the future on your mind. No hurry, let's take it one day at a time.
Oh my god, Britannia's just dead. What?
Dark Knight will get that shot in. He has one more shot. He takes out the Undertaker. Now it is impossible for the E100 to win.
And the Matildas do one better, and it does look like they will be the champions of Season 3. Matildas will take it.
There's the pummel party about to come out.
Yep, and Knight's the first point of focus, and Knight, oh my god, he's just been deleted.
I don't think he can hit the I7 without the I7 hitting him yet.
Oh, he can, he's
saying?
actually insane.
Unreasonable shot from Napalmer, but can he get the reload off? Can he survive? Does he know where Dell is? And does Wymo miss? No is the answer.
Hello and welcome back to another week of the wonderful world of Tanks ANZ Premier League. My name is Britannia. Joining me on the mic as always, my good friend Cthulhu and our other caster, a man who would trade his Nan for a good 3-star going into the Fantasy League. How are we feeling, gentlemen?
Actually, that's a lie, by the way, because I have not picked a single 3-star this week. There's a little pro tip for you.
So what you're saying is Nan's safe for this week, but
Nan's
clearly we
safe.
cross the halfway mark of the round robin, and I mean, at the moment, is this how you thought things would be going this season?
Honestly, oh yeah, you go first.
I wasn't sure if you were going to pick that one up, to be honest. But yeah, look, I don't know. I mean, I think there has been some surprising results, definitely. But for the most part, if we look at the standings, I think Cthulhu, it's kind of starting to even out to maybe where at least I thought we were headed.
Yeah, look, for the most of it, I would agree with you here, Elfish. Given that Action X kind of ended up somewhat falling off after a few past matches. Sentinels, kind of as expected. Probably the biggest one for me has been Panthers. That they kind of finally on the rise. Yeah, we were like talking about them, possibly, pushing that top three. This time, it's not the possibility; it's more so the reality.
Well, I mean, looking at things and how they are talking about potential upsets and Action X, I mean, Jordan, they're looking in a rough spot at the moment.
Yeah, which is surprising. Honestly, I thought, like, I think, what you did like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And at that point, like when we last had you on the broadcast, I was sort of looking at them and saying, actually, maybe this is a team that can go pretty far, right? I thought that they had a couple of good weeks and they looked like they were going to be able to maybe make it to top 4 and potentially even further than that. And then since then, they've kind of capitulated. And yeah, I mean, they're bottom of the table, basically. So got a lot of real work to do this week.
I mean, it was also that same week. Their counterparts from last week, Comets, they did take that opening round, which, I mean, look, we all sort of put down to maybe a bit of cheese coming through, but you reckon maybe it was an indicator of things to come for them?
Absolutely. Look, for Comets, I think right now they are in a decent enough spot where, yes, there's not a whole lot of expectations coming for them, but this also eases the general sort of pressure on them, where they can really just sort of think away from what the general sort of consensus about them is, and more so just focus on the game. Try to get all the core 5 rolling and not struggle for the numbers, and kind of go on from there. Whereas, I mean, you look at teams like Action X and Matilda's, internal problems galore seems to be the case.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at last week's results, it was that Cairns, Comet, Adelaide, Action X matchup. I mean, you messaged me, Cthulhu, midway through that match. You said, hold on, that's not at all how things should be going. It's looking a bit bleak here. And, like, we've crossed the halfway mark of the season already. Action X, I mean, rumours aside, do you reckon they have the ability to bounce back with half a season to go?
Kinda. Look,
I think that response says it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kinda.
Look, it is what it is. Let's have a look at the standings as they are currently. Jordan did allude to them a moment ago, but as they are heading into week 6, of course, Sentinels sitting atop the table, quite happily 12 points, and then all the way down the bottom, who would have thought the Matildas, a team that, I mean, there was a lot of hope coming for them. Somehow Action X have avoided that spot. Jordan, halfway through, do you reckon there's going to be any significant changes closing things out?
Yeah, I do think that there will be. I mean, I think Action X is kind of showing a bit of a downward trend. Comets are kind of showing a bit of an upward trend. So I could definitely see that being a situation that sort of flips on its head. Obviously, Matildas, I mean, I never really expected them to be in 6th. I think the way the season's going, I probably would expect them to remain in 6th unless they pretty much get on the bike, this week. And it is a winnable match for them this week, but I don't know. I just don't really rate them at the moment. So Sentinel, Scorpions, Panthers, I think they're quite happy sitting towards the top end. It's really going to be just a question of which order those 3 teams are going to be in. And obviously for 1 and 2, that's quite a big deal because it gives you that extra quote-unquote life, I suppose, going into the playoffs bracket. But aside from that, yeah, I mean, it sort of feels to me like we've got 2 like distinct groups in this table. It's like the top of the table and the bottom of the table. And it's just going to be what the order of those respective 3 teams in each category are going to be.
Much like the 2 groups, we sort of have 2 different competitions going on. Let's take a look at our fantasy team of the week, which everyone knows is where Jordan is going to be focusing for the evening. Forget the gameplay. It's about the players that show up. And Cthulhu, you expressed some surprise coming into prep today, seeing some of these players.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna be honest. Probably the biggest sort of surprise for myself was appearance of Tongalord. Despite the fact that he is a sort of, as a solo player, he is great. But with the way how things been looking for Action X, I was just rather surprised that he managed to make his way into the team of the week, whereas I was more so thinking that we would see more than just one representative of the Comets. But regardless of that, look, it's still quite a good sort of variety of players coming into the team of the week.
I mean, Jordan, you said you didn't have any 3 stars in your roster this week. Any of the 3 players that don't fall under that category in the roster from this week?
Yes, I have Bales and Returned in my roster this week, and I normally have Aussie in my roster as well. But this week, He's on the bench. He's on the reserve list. So we'll sort of see if that works out for me. I do really like Aussie. I think he's actually a great pickup for 3 stars personally. So he has been in every week up to this week. But I just think maybe I've gone a different direction this time around.
I mean, last time I was on the broadcast, he came in as a stand-in for that decider match, so he hasn't seen as much time, I imagine, as he or other people would like. But let's have a look at our player leaderboard and see where everyone's currently standing towards the top of the table. At the moment, in first, the returned, but two, does it surprise you at all, Cthulhu, that Melbourne, while being bottom of the table, have 2 players in the top 5 of the All-Stars leaderboard?
Yeah, it's still a very sort of odd occurrence, personally, to me, given that how things been really going for them. But yep, suppose look, at least in sort of solo department, things been looking up for them. At least, you know, fantasy has been farmed very thoroughly. So suppose for whoever wants to pick some good points here, Crit and Whippet have been putting up quite some numbers.
And of course, all of that fantasy potential that Jordan is trying to manifest tonight relies on our matches. Let's have a look at them and see where we're going to be looking to kick things off. The 2 teams in first match, of course, South Sydney Scorpions taking on Adelaide Action X. That could be a brutal one. Let's be honest. Melbourne Matildas versus Cairns Comets, battle of the bottom of the table, and then Perth Panthers taking on the North Sydney Sentinels at the end of the evening. Jordan, who have you got your eyes on tonight?
Well, definitely Panthers and Sentinels, and that's part of the reason, you know, why I've actually taken Aussie out of the fantasy team this week. And it's just because I think that first matchup should just be pretty straightforward. I think Scorpions, they're going to get that done and dusted. I'm almost kind of banking on the fact that Panthers and Sentinels is going to be a tight one and potentially even go to the tiebreaker. So I've sort of stacked it quite heavily on the Panthers and Sentinels players this week, and hopefully my strategy is going to work out. I think Matildas and Comets, obviously that's a battle for the bottom of the table. Still quite an important game, but in the grand scheme of things, it's the first and the last game that, to me, feel like the big matches this week.
Yeah, Cthulhu, just before we head over to the predictions, I'll throw it to you. That matchup in the middle, Melbourne Matildas versus the Cairns Comets. I mean, you're Melbourne at the moment, halfway through the season, and you're bottom of the table. Do you reckon there's a chance they can claw their way out of that position from here?
Oh, I think both teams will get a very thorough chance. Yeah, for Matildas, I think, look, I've been mentioned that from an unknown source that there may be some interesting strats to be involved in that middle match. But look, I think in reality, we can expect Comets to come out of this one. This is where I think they will sort of start their upward spiral. This is where they start their sort of comeback arc, I guess.
Well, speaking of comeback arcs, let's throw to the predictions and see if anyone else even comes close. Whether it is going to be a story of the comeback arc, because at the moment, still up there, still in first. I hold that title at the moment, and I've hedged my bets. I'll be honest. Me and Mac, same picks going into tonight, so there is no way, absolutely no way, that I can lose out on my positioning. But Jordan, you've backed the Matildas and the Panthers tonight.
I don't think I've backed the Matildas.
Wait,
I feel like it was Cthulhu.
I backed the Matildas, yeah.
But you know what?
That's the production.
If we get to the end of the night and Matildas and Panthers have won, maybe we'll just say it was on the graphic. But if they didn't win, then yeah, I did predict Comets and Sentinels.
Slide in a $10. I'll gladly trade at this point if that is the case at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, it seems to be a pretty overwhelming consensus. I think 5 of us all have the same picks at the moment. Even Wargaming records that this is the way to go. Actually, 6 is the audience has backed it as well. But Cthulhu, look, what do you reckon? Production, are they throwing a little bit tonight?
No. I actually think, well, okay, minus maybe the first match, I reckon production could be on some good stuff, because with Action X, look, as much as I love the boys, as much as I would love to give them yet another chance against Scorpions, yeah, I'm sorry, there is kind of I'm with the rest of you guys. Matildas versus Comets. This is where I'm kind of just at this point. Look, I was the first one, by the way. For the record, I was the first one to predict Scorpions, Comets, and Sentinels. Everyone else copied, so I just said, you know what? Screw it. Let's go for the underdogs at this point.
Picks or it didn't happen. I wouldn't believe that for a second.
Yeah.
Cthulhu.
Plenty of those. The records are all there, sent even to the government already. Don't you worry.
You're working hard for the visa to make it through to to land finals this time.
Exactly.
Hey,
Yes.
look, you got to do everything
I'm
you can.
putting all
You got to
the
do
effort.
everything you can to make it there, of course. But look, old Pilski, he's struggling a wee bit. I think he's the lowest of all of us on the fantasy rating as well. Do you reckon, Jordan? Is there any redemption for the Pilski Meister?
Yeah, look, I mean, tonight, I think he's probably got a pretty good prediction. I think it's quite a tough one, though. You know, like, I definitely did toss up predicting Matildas, and I also did toss up predicting Panthers. I feel like the only quote-unquote sure bet is the Scorpions over Action X. And, you know, even that, when it comes to Scorpions, they're a little bit of a how you going sometimes. Like, they could walk away with a loss in that series. So I think tonight's actually going to be quite a difficult one to predict. Like, I feel like Comets and Sentinels are the safe picks, because Comets have been playing a little bit better than Matildas, and Sentinels are Sentinels. But, like, there's definitely a world where that second and third matchup does go the way Cthulhu and Production have predicted. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, honestly, I'm surprised more teams aren't back in the Matildas. It was probably the big coin toss of the evening. But look, let's carry on with this night. Let's get on into it. Match one being the Scorpions taking on Action X. And look, Cthulhu, you're coming into this matchup. The Scorpions, you're feeling confident. Action X have not looked great, let's be honest, over the last couple of weeks. Is there a chance that could be maybe a bit of overconfidence coming in that might allow Action X back in?
There may be some overconfidence, I reckon. But I mean, knowing JT, knowing the Scorpions, I think, given that fair few matches prior to this were feeling a little bit shaky here and there, plus now with the Mines out of the equation, I think it is sort of the time for Scorpions to get a little bit more serious. It is time for them to, get into full force. Start introducing some of the more, sturdier strats. Maybe bring ye old Russian back into the fray with his autoloading skills. So I think there is very much over ground for that overconfidence, but I reckon we might see just very sort of by the books almost Scorpions tonight.
And I mean, Jordan, from the sounds of it, Aussie might in fact be playing. Does that, shake up your confidence in your fantasy picks?
No, not at all. I mean, I think that's pretty standard. I think actually it was a little bit more of a change up when he wasn't playing that 1 week than what he when he is playing. I think he's always been kind of a core member of this team. Like I said, I went in a bit of a different direction because I think that this is going to be quite a whitewash for Scorpions, and I find that the fantasy points don't really come through in the whitewash as much as they do in the close games, because like you'll see rounds where like there's just 5 tanks dead, and there's no like trading or anything like that, and it's like one player may have done like 4 or 5k damage, but everyone else has got like 1 or 1.5k, and it's like, all right, well, unless you pick that one player on the team that just won so handedly, you're not really getting too many points. So I kind of like the games when they're a little bit closer for the fantasy points, and so that's why I've actually avoided this one for the most part. I do have JT in my team tonight, but aside from that, I don't have anyone in this game.
I suppose it's the case of if everyone's farming, it's probably not the best situation for the
yeah.
fantasy league. But Cthulhu, we have our maps on screen. Scorpions opting into Prokhorovka, Cliff there for Action X, and Tundra as a tiebreaker. You've been watching these guys for a while. How do you think this one leans?
Look, I'm gonna be honest. I'm a little bit curious. It's probably the only way to really describe these picks. Prokhorovka is going to be one of those maps where you either go full send or you go for an absolutely good sit down. But I think Prokhorovka might actually look very, very nicely here for Scorpions.
Well, speaking of full send, gentlemen, Godspeed.
Let's see how this one does pan out, Cthulhu. It is yet another game of Prokhorovka for Scorpions. It sort of seems to be their home ground territory after Mines was removed this season, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
It's been a pretty decent map for them.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking here about what is sort of that big replacement for them, given that Mine's no longer a thing. Yeah, and it seems like Prokhorovka kind of came into the play really, really nicely. I'm pretty sure as well this was one of the maps where Russian was able to farm up quite rather nicely in the Stritzwan last season.
Yep.
So, I mean,
Yeah,
why
they
not?
always have a bit of a pocket strat, I think, the Scorpions. This one I feel like I've seen a little bit before, though. You've got the Super Conk on the rail tracks at A6 and a Super Conk on an IS7, just watching the 1-2 line push as well. Aussie in the CS63 doing a bit of scouting, and Raspberry in his IS7. Just having a bit of a look around. Does look like Aussie's going to cop 1, maybe 2 shots on the way out here. CJ's missed that second shot, though. And Aussie should go dark in just a second. So he'll get out with only the 1 shot worth of damage being taken.
I'm liking so far the setup, at least on middle. Raspberry is sort of just peeking around. Thankfully, IS-7's hold down setup is rather nice. Yeah, not the side, as so Raspberry realizes that everything very quickly. So unfortunately for him, right now the main case is going to be, well, you either sort of just play around the side and sort of push as far away as possible from CS63's render distance, or you just have to, very much reposition yourself because, Trax will be able to go just over push and just completely farm you up. Plus, Donga now starting to make his way over. He could really change the tide, but again, that double sort of medium setup from ActionX could really bite back at them.
Push coming through here for Dongalord. Yeah, talk about that double medium setup. The issue I sort of see with it in this case is that it sort of feels like if Dongalord's going to push all the way down here, eventually gets lit by JT and Aussie, he just gets absolutely railed. So what ActionX is actually trying to do at the moment is dig out Raspberry in that IS-7. I sort of feel like he's going to be the linchpin. If he can survive late into the round, then that's going to be a really positive sign for the Scorpions. But if he drops, then the floodgates really start to open up because that'll be what allows ActionX to take a lot of map control.
Yeah, that was going to be the big sort of focus point. Ideally, for ActionX, it would be just sort of the isolation play, sort of bit by bit, sort of pinch them away. CJ against Benny, I'll be honest, I'm not particularly rating the chances here, although he might just be able to at least get some chip damage in. So he could really throw in a bit of a spanner in the works of a Scorpion player, but as it stands, it's only just the... only the scout play. Actually, Loki, that's a big brain position that CJ has taken.
Yeah, a little out to put a lot of pressure onto Benny.
Forces him out of that very much of a sort of like a almost half hold down spot, which doesn't really provide a lot of sort of firing opportunities either, or at least safe firing it.
Well, I'm a little bit concerned about this from Dongalord.
Donga drops, that could be deadly.
Yeah, exactly. He needs to be very careful about what he's doing here. And he has got the info. He has spotted JT. So he's just going to back off, which is a pretty smart move. ActionX are slowly starting to uncover the pieces of the puzzle that they need to kind of paint a full picture of what the defense does look like. They've spotted out Raspberry. They've spotted out the other IS-7 of Benny over on the sort of little island. And now they've seen JT as well. So they know where 3 heavy tanks are, and those tanks are pretty unlikely to be moving. I think you can make an educated guess that the other Super Conqueror, if you don't know where it is probably on the rail tracks. That spot that Napalmer is sitting in is a very common one. So the only other member that they don't really know where that particular tank is Aussie.
JT.
And he's kind of just working his way all over the map because he's in a CS63. But this is a nice rotation. If he catches CJ alongside Benny, then there's no one actually really to help CJ out right now. I mean, you're going to get some shots in from Trax. One of them doesn't connect. It goes into the ground, and CJ is now dead. He's just a dead man.
Yeah, this is a bit of an oversight there from ActionX. Not really finding or not really being able to get a read onto where Aussie is. Basically, it meant problems. I was just about to highlight as well that, Gloucester being already less than half HP doesn't particularly help the cause either. But now it's just a full-on YOLO from Trax and Co. trying to get some sort of revenge here. But this seems like a colossal oversight here, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, you say that, but if they're actually able to take down Aussie and Benny, then it could well be worth it. The issue is, though, that Napalmer in that Super Conk is designed to farm tanks on this cross, and there's one for him as he does set Iron Guard on fire. Aussie able to survive. It was Benny to drop, but end of the day, it's really not been much of a round here at all for ActionX. And also, kind of unfortunately for me, it hasn't been much of a round for JT. I don't even think he's fired a bullet yet. Or a shell, I guess, if we're to go with that terminology.
What do I even have for my fantasy out of Scorpions? Oh, I did also pick JT. Uh-oh.
Yeah. I don't think he's fired a shot.
That's unfortunate.
Aussie has been farming, though, to be fair. So if you did pick Aussie, which, stupid me, I took him out.
I was tempted, yeah. It was either the choice between him and JT, and I went with JT as well. But look, yeah, as it stands, unfortunately for Action X, yeah, this is all a very very sad storyline, at least in terms of the first round. Maybe on the defense is where they're gonna, bring it back, given that the attacking side has been very much of a struggle fest for a number of teams. So who knows?
Jeepers, it seems we carry on the trend. That little stat popped up at the beginning of the map. 100% win rate for defense on proc at the moment. It all sort of stemmed from CJ's position. Jordan, I mean, you talked about it early on in the round. It was a great position until it was read into and dealt with.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good setup, like a pretty standard setup, to be honest, for Scorpions on the defense. But by and large, I didn't think Action X really did anything too tricky to try to break that defense. You could kind of see what they were trying to do by sending the I think it was this CS63 up in like C0 and try to sort of get a bit of positioning there, but it needed a bit more assistance than what it got. It needed a little bit of a little bit of backup. I think if they would have had a couple of tanks there ready to sort of deal with the rotation coming in from the Scorpions, it could have been a really nice sort of little bait and switch sort of trap setup that Action X could have gone for there. But I mean, they just didn't really seem to be aware of the possibility, or didn't really seem to have the tanks in the positions to sort of deal with that kind of a bit more of an aggressive defense style, I guess, that came through from Scorpions.
Yeah, I mean, it all came from the fact that Aussie was allowed to maneuver unscathed, Cthulhu, honestly, and from there, it really, everything just sort of crumbled. CJ was that linchpin, the dominoes then sort of followed after, and Action X almost had to commit to the full send.
Yeah, it definitely felt like there needed to be some sort of, maybe even almost like a tank destroyer really set up for where CG was intending to play. Say they had, instead of the Batchat Donga, for example, playing, and I know this may seem like a very silly idea, say something like even like a Stritzwan on the hill. There would have been some good cover fire, a good amount of DPS. Yes, CJ would have been traded out, but it would have been a really good trade of HP, at least in terms of either Benny or Aussie. So yeah, look, there's been definitely a fair few hiccups, I think, in the way how Action X read the situation. And yes, I still, applaud the decision to bring the double mediums, but that very much relied, one, on the fact that the heavies wouldn't really bleed in the early stages, and two, that Action X wouldn't really give away a whole lot of tanks scot-free. So it was supposed to be sort of, you get spotted, you bail out. You don't really hold on to that position, because that very case of Benny and Aussie sort of flank would happen.
And I mean, once the call came, Action X go for the full send, but Jordan May Farmer, I believe it was, and a Super Conk had the cross, and he was farming damage.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the Super Conk is designed to do, isn't it? It's pretty much the farm tank when it comes to heavy tanks especially, and you just sort of set him up on a nice sniping line, and he's going to get a lot of work done. Obviously, quite an experienced and veteran player, Nate Palmer, so he's not really going to make too many mistakes when you put him in a position like that. Generally very, very, very consistent in converting those kinds of situations. And yeah, I mean, Action X kind of put themselves in between a rock and a hard place once that CS63 had been taken down. It sort of felt like they had to do something about it, but it was kind of just like a sunk cost fallacy, right? The more you throw tanks in there, the worse it's going to get, and inevitably they walked away with quite a convincing loss, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Cthulhu, at the moment, we carry on that 100% win rate for defense on Prokhorovka. Is it a case of the map does just play out that one-sided, or ANZ teams haven't quite figured out how to break the defensive setup?
I think with all the changes to the meta, I think it's, just ANZ teams still yet to kind of find the right sort of approach. Plus, I mean, playing against the defense, the way how currently Prokhorovka is also being set up, the way how you have difficulties with sort of finding the consistent info is, I think, the actual problem for a number of teams.
We're back at it once again. We'll see if that 100% defense win rate continues, gentlemen.
Let's see, indeed. I feel as though if anyone is going to break it this season, it might be Scorpions. They play a lot of this map, so hopefully they can come up with something on the attack that's going to work. Double IS-7, a Super Conqueror, and AMX M454 and a CS63 on the attack. Once again, a very much lighter lineup. Or maybe a mediumer lineup from Action X, for lack of a better word, as they've picked up 2 CS63s and a Batchat. So they are just really looking for map control.
Well, yeah, map control would be good as well. Plus, I'm assuming that sort of lineup could also be good to sort of hunt down those, the other, medium, in terms of Aussie. and sort of rid Scorpions off the site. So, sort of, it seems like a sound idea. Unfortunately, it's just, well, theory versus practice are two completely different things usually, isn't it, Elfish?
Yes, indeed. It's so easy to sit there and say this is what should happen. I mean, I think we can look at it, and for Action X, they definitely expected something different to happen when they called that strat last game, and then it turned out that it didn't. Scorpions had a different idea.
Well,
It's all about adapting
actually,
on the fly.
look what Action X are actually currently doing. Donge and Iron Guard currently flanking around through the 1-2 line. They will go through the K line onto the railway. From there on, unless Aussie doesn't decide to come back and respot the ridge at the J7, that's going to be perfect opportunity for Donga to at least unload a clip. That's a whole lot of HP that could be gone out of something like an S-Conk or the AMX M454, but with the issue now being that Trax is about to be pushed by the two IS-7s, that might actually just be completely nullified, that whole idea.
I think we're probably just going to see Scorpions try to get a bit of pressure on this 2 flag and bait out a couple of peaks. JT's in a great spot to watch the mid peaks. Raspberry is there, so can only assume it's going to be Aussie to just get on the cap. Having a bit of a look to see if he can find an angle onto the side of Gloucester's tank through the rail tracks here, but no shots yet. And in fact, actually, it just looks like it's going to be the dump straight over the top. JT, he feels like he's got an angle here. Has taken a lot on the way in, but if they make this work, Scorpions, it is going to look like a bit of a masterstroke. JT almost certainly will go down. Raspberry trying to do his best to keep him safe, but this could end up being a 2-for-1 trade if Scorpions just pen their shots. Benny does go low. Aussie starting to eat a few shells from the cross as well, but Gloucester should be well and done, and the same can be said for Trax. So, end of the day, disappointing for my fantasy team again, because JT's going to go down, but realistically speaking, he did what he had to do for the team to get that 2-for-1 trade, and now there's a numbers advantage for the Scorpions. How long is that going to last, though? Dongalord, he missed that first shot onto Aussie, which might even allow Aussie to get another shot through here. And that could be a big difference maker later on down the track. HP advantage for Scorpions, but it's 3 heavy tanks against 3 medium tanks, and I'm back in the mediums every day of the week here.
Yeah, lack of vision is definitely going to be quite a problem, where basically CJ and Co would be able to farm this up. Meanwhile, Napalm and Benny, they have the mobility in the IS-7s, but again, with Benny being tagged up to all hell, 2 more shots and that's basically GG. What could be done is, well, a lot of things, really. Dongalord could really go for a few more pot shots here and there, but...
They're on the defense, though. I don't think he needs to peek.
Yeah, he just... as long as they're able to keep on spotting without themselves getting spotted, that's, I think, going to be basically the shout.
At a certain point, Scorpions is going to have to put a tank or 2 on the cap. There is no 2 ways about it. They're not going to be able to chase the mediums down. They're going to have to bring the mediums to them. Raspberry now is kind of out in no man's land, and you can just see how easy it is for Action X to play this game out now. Spreading out, establishing a crossfire, using their superior mobility to their advantage. It's a bit easier to get some free shots through when you're in the mediums rather than in the heavies, and so far that's looking pretty good for Action X. They have brought the HP deficit back to pretty much even.
And the sheer amount of mobility, once again, and Iron Guard basically being able to spot Napalm on this approach basically means free farm on the damage for either him or Iron Guard, with Napalm now being, well, just hit to half HP. Benny's still very much alive and well, which is probably the more surprising thing for me personally. But the play that actually Scorpions are looking to play is not a bad per se one, because collapsing right now onto CJ, yes, he will end up taking quite some damage unless he is able to bail out and get covered by Donga. But having the ability to isolate each one of those mediums could be a good shout, but not enough DPS on either one of those tanks unless it's a full-on trio push. That is a shot and a half, oh my.
Yeah, 663 is not a bad shout at all from Raspberry. 476, maybe not quite there for Benny, but look, 2 unanswered shots in from Raspberry, and Benny has sort of swung this one back into, I want to say, a winnable position for Scorpions, but I just don't really see the world where they can actually find the win condition here. It just seems so far-fetched for Scorpions. No matter how well they trade, to actually convert this into a W.
Speaking of the W, Donga might find his own W. He just got over the rail. Did get himself spotted, but so did he. Well, Napalmer nearly had the opportunity as well of a lifetime to just absolutely farm out. But the issue is now he drove himself into the lake, and Napalmer is going to hunt. Oh wait, no, wait, Napalmer just completely fallen back. Okay.
Well,
Reload
Napalmer
the
might
HE
get
shell.
one more shot in here. Oh, it's connected.
Oi.
Another good one. Does put Dongalord down to a one-shot, but the issue now is going to be the timer for Scorpions. I mean, they've got good damage onto Action X. They put Donga to a one-shot. CJ to about a two-shot, I guess, depending on how the rolls go. But Iron Guard's going to be the real problem. Iron Guard, looking for that reset, might actually get cut off by Raspberry. I feel like, as dumb as this sounds to say, there is kind of still a win in here for Scorpions if they can somehow get another tank onto the cap. I mean, the issue is that they don't really want to give up the position of either Napalmer or Raspberry. So, what is the point of having Benny on the cap right now? I mean, Action X knows that they don't need to reset. If you're not going to put a second tank on this cap, then you're not going to be able to cap out in time. I mean, Raspberry has managed to sort of chase down Iron Guard, and you can now start to see Napalm coming across. So this is where it starts to get interesting. The Batchats and the CS63s are very far away. Have they got time to find the reset? I'd say so.
Just,
CJ and his CS63 will have to be the one to do it.
yeah, Donga is nowhere near close. Iron Guard being completely chased off by Raspberry, but in comes the man of the hour, CJ. Got only 10 more seconds to just try to reset.
He might not get it.
To basically sit.
He hasn't got it.
Yeah, 8 more seconds. Wait, no. He might just be able to. He might just be able to pause.
Oh, he
no,
missed.
misses. Oi, yeah.
That should be unlosable. That really should be unlosable for Action X, but I think they fumbled that one pretty substantially. I think Scorpions have gotten away with something a little bit cheeky there.
Not just cheeky, they break the streak. The first attacking win on Prokhorovka this season.
Yeah.
That's
It wasn't convincing though. Let's just
that
be
was
real.
that was a wee bit criminal. I mean, a matter of timing. How many times have we seen that, Cthulhu, where it's just down to that last second, you're not in the right position? But I mean, for the start of that half, that round rather, it looked like Action X were the ones taking charge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It definitely looked like with Action X, things definitely looked a little bit up. This is where they could have really recovered themselves. This is where they really would have found the big sort of return to the form, because it definitely seemed like last time they lost, they rattled them rather heavily. So going into this one, they needed some sort of solution, some sort of, well, return to form. This would have been it.
And I mean, you know, Action X, they claim first blood on your boy there, Jordan, JT going down. But
Yeah.
again, they sort of just fumble that bag on the precipice of taking that round. Unfortunately, you look at the numbers. My God.
6 points. 6 points, JT. Why are you doing this to me?
And sorry,
Oh.
who did you sub out again? Oh, that's right,
Aussie.
Aussie. Yeah,
Aussie.
that's
But
look at him.
oh,
Look at the
It
numbers.
it wasn't Aussie for JT though. To be fair, JT was in regardless.
I mean, you could
The
add
issue
Aussie.
though is, yeah, the issue is like I find this is why I don't often pick JT, is because I find he does play a lot of different roles, and it sort of depends on like what role is he coming in to play. If he's playing, a damage dealing role, like he really farms the fantasy points. But when he's in that position where he's saying, look, I'm going to lead the charge, I'm going to be the guy to soak up all the shells and leave the rest of the team to do the job, then this is kind of what you get. And it's like not necessarily any fault on him as an individual. It reflects poorly on his fantasy rating, it reflects poorly on his damage, but that push is actually what gets Scorpions rolling in this game and gets them that 2-for-1 trade initially. So what can you really do? I guess it's sometimes you play for the team, sometimes you play for yourself, and I think that as well is kind of a key thing when you're talking about fantasy points, is you have to pick the players really that do play for themselves. So JT might be getting the flick next week. We'll see.
Look, Cthulhu, all I'm hearing is excuses. But I mean, going into that round, of course, Action X opted into a slightly lighter approach, obviously running the 3 mediums. I mean, it definitely feels like Jordan said that wasn't quite an accurate representation of how that round was playing out. Obviously in a different situation, you play that how many times over again? Do you reckon Action X take it more often than not?
Look, I think Action X, any sort of bigger replay of this, or sort of a different replay of this match, I definitely think they would have taken it. But yeah, just unfortunately, I think their now issue is just the time management. Really, time management has been sort of a very big talking point for a number of moments, and I mean, I think out of all the seasons, this has been one of those seasons where I think we've seen the most amount of games to be lost just purely for the missed shots.
Well, they're not done just yet, but Jordan, we're heading into map number 2. This, it feels like this could be a bit of a whitewash, but this is their chance to deny that from happening. Take it away.
Yeah, look, Cliff is an interesting one, though. I mean, I feel like Cliff is one of those maps where if you don't have a great grasp of it, you're going to struggle a little bit. So I do think it is a good sign for Scorpions, obviously, that they've got that 2-0 on Prokhorovka. But let's see what Action X have actually got rustled up on their own map pick. Be a big difference maker. I don't think we've actually seen Scorpions play this one so far this season, though they did pick it up a little last season. From memory, it wasn't an amazing map for them last season. I think it was a bit of
quite a traumatizing, one could even say.
Traumatizing experience in some cases. So Action X might be in with a chance of pushing this through the tiebreaker.
So Aussie already taking quite a fair bit of damage trying to spot this whole approach to the middle. No control over Donut, which I think this is where Scorpions might actually farm up quite a fair bit of work, but this will once again depend on...
is in a great spot.
Yeah, Napalm is in a phenomenal spot right now, just to keep on just going, because CJ is in very much of a farmable spot. We're talking about that, though. Dongalore might just be able to actually wedge out Aussie out of that position, and basically leave Scorpions almost, well, sightless, really, apart from Napalm. But even him, he is in one of those sort of positions where you can't really drive out to the donut to reclaim the sort of info gathering spot.
Bit of a send coming through for Scorpions already. Looks like it will be JT once again, who is leading from the front. Aussie just to back away. Raspberry there to help out. And they're going to try to find that overmatch, that 2-on-1. It's not really worked out very nicely there at all. JT just cops a huge chunk of damage. But the trades actually do eventually work out for Scorpions. And now it's a question of, can JT survive? And potentially put in another shot or two. If he's able to do that, then it's more than valuable for the Scorpions. Aussie and Raspberry, they're not slowing things down at all. Scorpions, they're playing a different kind of game of World of Tanks this week than what we've seen from them in previous weeks. They're a little bit more decisive, a bit more proactive. They're really trying to force the issue on their defensive side, and I think this is catching Action X off guard pretty substantially. Dongalord is going to come in and try to trade out JT, but it looks like he's bounced or missed that initial shot, and now he is just getting farmed as well. So maybe there is a world where Raspberry and Aussie go down here, but by and large, Scorpions have already won this round.
Yeah, the good thing is at least Gloucester should be able to find a finisher, so at least that's one of the two tanks down, but ideally they wanted to use both of the VZ's clips to get rid of both Aussie and Raspberry here as well, but regardless of that, with now the clipping is now upon us. Napalma and Benny are looking to clean things up. First is up, well, Gloucester is going to be on, and then Tracks to be finished off. As it stands here, look, unfortunately for Action X, this is just looking extremely, extremely grim, I'll be honest.
Yes, indeed. Gloucester is dead, and that's going to be the end of the series. So it's a 3-0 for the Scorpions, and it's without much fanfare either. It really feels like it's just been a little bit too easy for Scorpions. Like, even when these rounds have gone close, Action X have kind of not really upheld their end of the bargain, you know, in terms of competing in this series. Scorpions, I think, got away with a bit of a freebie there on the attack of Prokhorovka. And then, you know, that one on defensive. Cliff looks pretty easy indeed. So, you know, it's sort of playing out in the way that I expected. Quite a comfortable win for Scorpions today.
I mean, you got to wonder how much the mental was chalked after that. You know, you're in a position where you could reset the time on the hill. You then lose it just because the shot goes wide. Cthulhu, do you reckon that's sort of what led into what we just saw?
Very much so, yeah. Definitely quite a solid tilter there for Action X, and yeah, look, things just not seeming to be working out for them. I mean, you look at Donga, just unfortunately couldn't even catch a break. Neither could CJ. and sort of the rest of the team kind of fell through as well. There was a solid attempt. I'll give him that with the double VZ, but unfortunately, that's kind of where they fall through because the VZs couldn't really find enough damage at that sort of a refrag point, and well, from there on, things sort of kind of downsloped from there on out. Whereas you look at Scorpions, a very, very decisive is probably the best way to describe it, as Elfish called it all out.
You know, I mean, Jordan slightly better in the fantasy for JT, but I mean, he had a huge role in that last round, right in the thick of things. Took a whopping 2.2k damage or something there as he was getting into the thick of it. Sorry, yeah, you can see him there, 343 health after that initial salvo, but it was his punch through the attack that allowed Scorpions to take this win.
Well, yeah, I mean, the difference is it's literally the exact same thing that he did in the last round of Prokhorovka, but he actually survives here on one shot instead of getting taken down. And that's why it's always so important to be focusing your targets correctly, because you have an extra tank in the game on 1 HP, in theory. I mean, 343 or 1 HP doesn't make a difference. Anyone's going to one-shot it. But if he gets another 2 or 3 or 4 shots out, that can be, you know, thousands of extra damage, just because you haven't managed to get that one final killing blow through. So, yeah, not necessarily that his role really changed up so much, but it's just that ActionX failed to convert the kill onto him, and then that's where you really see that snowball go from being potentially a close round, like what we saw on Prokhorovka, to actually ending up being a really easy win, as what we saw on Cliff. So, yeah, same kind of idea. It just worked out a lot better this time for Scorpions.
Yeah, I mean, look, it definitely felt like a bit of a wash coming into that round. Of course, they've got the 3-0, they've got the potential at the 4-0 as well if they want it. But I mean, Cthulhu, that's I mean, your Action X at the moment. You're already in a rough spot. You've had a rough couple of weeks. You then lose, your defense round, which is the round to win on Prokhorovka, and then you go into get Cliff. You just get swept aside. I mean, surely there's something that has to go on behind the scenes to change in the coming weeks.
Oh yeah, but I mean, we've already seen quite a substantial change this week. I mean, we haven't really seen Speed playing at all tonight, so maybe that's been sort of the quote-unquote attempt to fix things, maybe to at least change things around, just at least to enable some sort of a different turnout. But yeah, as it stands, they had a really solid chance. Unfortunately, yeah, just leaving things to RNG, leaving things to the last moment push, unfortunately, didn't really help a whole lot. So yeah, this week it is yet another, just once again, an unfortunate L.
Well, back into it, Jordan. We're going to see if it's the consolation prize or the down trail for Action X.
I can't really see a world where they do, to be honest. I mean, obviously it's always possible, but Scorpions have looked like the much better team tonight. So if I had to sort of give a scoreline that I felt reflected the series so far, yeah, probably a 4-0. Just don't think Action X have done anything that's been impressive enough to warrant a round of victory. Trax, why is he not actually going to go up the hill here? Otherwise, he might have gotten farmed. He didn't really realize that all the Scorpions was rotating through Donut, so he would have actually been safe to make that climb. Napalmer is just playing as safely as possible. If Action X dump over the top, he's really going to be in trouble. Scorpions have taken full Donut control. So now if they go over, if Action X tries to delete Napalmer, they walk into a huge setup from Scorpions, and it's no longer an opportunity, really.
Quite a rarity, though, seeing Scorpions bring in so many autoloaders. Usually it's them being completely, against those sort of picks, given just how well-versed they were in countering those sort of picks. But look, double 50p, double VZs, I mean, sign me up, because that is going to be an absolute, deletion sort of post from them if they keep their control of Donut the way they do.
Yeah, Track's already getting pretty farmed. You've got the double 50B of Benny and Raspberry, which is a really scary prospect, because if you make a mistake, you're just dead. And not only that, but it's also a double VZ55 setup. So it's just a lot of damage dumped down in a split second from Scorpions if Action X even so much as peaks in the wrong position. Raspberry, he'll definitely be looking for an angle onto Iron Guard right now. Hasn't quite been able to find it. Already, though, you can see just slow but steady, the trades are working out favorably for Scorpions.
Very much so, yeah. Scorpions so far, so good. They're keeping their sort of the general run pretty cleanly. They're sort of playing around the timing of the clips. making sure that they're not really over peaking, nor really over pushing, because they know for a fact that the moment the brawl is going to erupt, this is where they will fall. So instead, quick sort of chip damage, making sure that they sort of pop in, get the shot, pop back out, and get themselves reloaded, and nothing too overly spicy. Whereas you look at Action X, that kind of really ended up getting themselves separated quite a whole lot, because I mean, whilst yes, CJ has a really good position to counter quite a fair few rotations, I mean, with JT not being able to rendezvous with Napalmer, this is where things could start to get a little bit more problematic. I say that though, for the most of it, it's actually trade against JT.
This is a bit of a slower game, how it's playing out, isn't it, than what we've seen for the most part. And I think a lot of that is actually down to Action X on the defense, not being quite as aggressive as Scorpions. They have actually brought that HP deficit back quite substantially, and they're now in the lead. Even though it says only 400 HP, I think a little bit more than that, because obviously Scorpions have come in with a little bit more of an HP pool total by the looks of things. Didn't quite catch at the very start, but either way, not really a huge concern.
Oh yeah,
Very
nothing
evenly matched at
nothing
the moment.
Yeah, nothing too big or nothing too just yet exciting. I think at this point it's just sort of Scorpions are just playing it out. Like, oh yeah, it's whatever. We got the win. That's all that really matters to them, really, at the end of the day. But yeah, look, at least they getting to, you know, toy around with the fact of how like a slow game would really pan out, and how would say that sort of double 50B double VZ introduction would really go. Napalmer sort of attempting not to recreate the traumatic past of the last season.
Yeah, I think Raspberry and Russian really need to start getting in there a little bit and using their HP, which is what Russian is trying to do at the moment. He's started to draw a bit of fire, gotten a good trade in there, a few shots for just the one received. That's a nice little equalizer. Napalmer is on the big wrap around the back, and Trax is sort of waiting for it. But I do wonder if Trax is watching in the direction of Raspberry. Does Napalmer get that first shot off? And does he win this 1v1? That's going to be a big difference maker. Benny as well. 2 shots left in the clip, down to a 1 shot. Napalmer did get the first shot across, so he should win this 1-on-1. Trax does go down. Big moment for the Scorpions as they now have the 5-on-3. Russian reasonably healthy. Gloucester, though, is just going to be sending it forward. Dongalord's down to a 1-shot. JT, can he slide that one through just to finish things off? Does look like that's going to be the case, and, well, he's going to get traded back down by Gloucester, but end of the day, it's still not looking too bad for Scorpions. A lot of this is going to come down to what Gloucester can do. Russian is not going to have enough to finish him off. He's going to need at least a shot in from Raspberry.
Yeah, but the Raspberry, Raspberry is about to fall. I was just about to say, yeah, CJ will be the one to finish him off. So Russian right now on a very much of a borrowed time right now, because with CJ gunning for him, yeah, he is going to actually target him, but even then the clip is not enough. Yeah, there's the finisher as well. So it's all down to Napalm, 93 HP, and a dream.
Yeah, I don't think this one really is likely to get converted, is it? I mean, he's on the attack. If he was on the defense, I don't know that I would even give him really much of a chance with 2 minutes left on the clock. CJ looks like he'll just be going up on the hill climb, which is not a bad choice at all. He's on 200 HP, but he's still a tank that can provide vision, and Gloucester, obviously, from there, should be able to chase Napalm down and finish him off. Or even, you know, again, there's a world where, as Action X, you just sit around here and don't really do too much. I think the issue here for Scorpions was that there was just a little bit too much of a damage bleed in the mid stages of this round. They were trading pretty effectively and looking okay, but there was a bunch of instances where, in particular, I think Benny got really, really farmed. And so Scorpions, they do drop that one round, but end of the day, it's not really a big concern to them as they've won the series.
There you go, consolation prize, it would seem, Cthulhu, but I mean, look, there was again signs that maybe things weren't going to go their way. They do get some good shots off to convert in the end, but again, it's unfortunately that case of far too little, far too late.
Yeah, look, it does feel definitely quite tragic for the Action X, the way how things been sort of rolling out, the way how things really went downhill for them, especially after such a great first 3 weeks. We'll discard the first week result, but the two games that they were able to win in a rather decisive manner were looking extremely, extremely promising from there on, though. I don't know what happened. What was the change between week 3 and week 4? But it is just a complete 180 from the way how they were playing.
Numbers on your screen, and look, JT, another unfortunate round. But look, if nothing else, CJ got himself some points on the board. It again very much feels like that's great and all, but you're already over the finish line. It's much ceremonial rather than anything, Jordan. But it feels hard to try and identify something positive to take away for Action X after how this played out.
Yeah, I mean, end of the day, like, they probably should have won that second round on Prokhorovka, and if they do that, then they've gotten to a tiebreaker against Scorpions and taken a point away from them. So, like, in reality, even though it does end up pretty much feeling like an easy series for Scorpions, it actually wasn't that far away from being quite close. And I think that's, in one way, it's nice for Action X because it's like, oh, well, we weren't too far away, but in another capacity, it's kind of like, well, one little minor thing went our way, we could have actually won this series potentially, or taken it to at least the tiebreaker and gotten a point. So it's got to be a little bit painful for Action X to be going down in that fashion when it could have been so much more. But end of the day, we sort of all walked in with the expectation that Scorpions was going to be the better team, and they do walk away with the full 3 points. So it sort of feels like our equilibrium has been restored, but you just would be hoping for a little bit more there for Action X. At least those individuals, they'd be walking away from this series a little bit disappointed, because that could have been, a little bit better than what it was.
I mean, you say equilibrium, you're looking back at the results. I mean, that's a 3-1 loss there from Action X. Matildas, who are currently bottom of the leaderboard, were able to take down Scorpions 3-2. Cthulhu, does that maybe shake up that bottom of the leaderboard?
Oh, it'll definitely shake up the bottom of the leaderboard rather thoroughly. I mean, I reckon we'll be seeing a lot of sort of that sort of race between the bottom 3, who gets sort of almost relegated into the matchup between the top B League team and themselves. And right now, I wouldn't be able to predict as to who will by the end of this season will finish the bottom of the leaderboard.
I mean, that'd be a huge storyline, Jordan. I mean, Comet's coming into the competitions fresh, just managing to escape that relegations position because, unfortunately, a couple of teams fall flat. Surely they've got to feel quite confident after seeing that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I like I said, I've slowly but surely been warming up to Comets, and actually this is the first week that I've sort of predicted for them. So I guess it's not too big of a surprise to hear me sort of starting to speak positively about them. I think they're in with a really good chance, and there is actually a world where they do make it through to playoffs, which would be kind of above and beyond, I think, what our expectations would have been for them. I would have thought they would be, like, if I had my power rankings at the start of the season, I would have put them 6th, just because they're the new team. That's what I did to Conquest last season, and that's what I would have done to them this season. But yeah, they're doing really well for themselves.
Well, from the sound of things, our interviewee is ready to go, jumping in to join us from the Scorpions. It's the man, the myth, the legend, Russian. Look, well done, mate. You guys take a very convincing win over Adelaide. And, I mean, talk us through that first round. You're coming in, CJ's got a great line in you, and then all of a sudden, Benny and Ozzy team up, take him out, and it all falls apart. I mean, what was going on comms-wise there?
I mean, what can I say? Benny, my replacement, is just playing amazingly. Like, I've been benched for the past 2 weeks, and he's just taken my position like it's nothing really. Like, I'm not even needed anymore. So yeah, it went really well. I watched the game. I think we're really solid on proc at the moment, actually, and taking that win on attack as well was quite good. Breaking that trend of everyone losing on attack, which is pretty impressive.
A bit of a tight one, though, to be fair.
It was. Yeah.
Tell me, why are you actually benched? What happened? Why have you been sitting on the bench for the last couple of weeks? Because this seems very weird to me.
Like Raspberry said, I just played terribly, and JT just forced me to bench. Like, what can I say?
You didn't fight back? You didn't pull off your shirt and, like, let him know? Because that's what I would have done. If JT tried to bench me, I would have kicked him in the face. You know what I'm saying?
He's a true alpha, I can't. There's nothing I can do.
Okay. That is what I think of when I see JT. I just think that guy's a true alpha.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, going into just now the remainder of the season, sort of any concerns now that it seems like you guys sort of almost fixed up whatever the small issues that were plaguing you guys. Because I mean, even say you sort of now returning slowly from the bench, even Benny sort of getting quite a fair few more games. It seems like now you're all actually sort of working as that sort of almost a 6-man roster. Does it sort of now lean into the rest of the games? Kind of, yeah, look, we'll just sort of adjust on the go, or is it sort of still up in the air as to who will stay core?
It's a good question. Honestly, like, being pretty honest, I haven't really been informed. Wasn't 100% the reason I wasn't playing, but I think having a 6-man roster is actually really useful. Like, we've been playing mainly 5, mainly due to commitment issues. Like, Benny's obviously quite busy most of the time. So now that he's actually available every week, really helps. So that's mainly why we've been playing with that 6-man. So we'll just see how we go.
Well, look, Russian, I do have one question before I let you head off. Do you think it's the hair that gives Benny his power, or is it the glasses? I don't know. It seems to be his whole aesthetic.
Mate, it's everything. Like, when you meet him, you'll just tell. Like, he just has it. He's got what it takes.
The whole combo. Okay, look, Russian, before we let you head off, though, is there anyone you'd like to shout out?
Probably my parents. Love you guys.
Are they watching?
Thanks for... No, probably not. But, you know.
Flip it.
Yeah, we'll make sure we'll send it through to them. But look,
All right.
we'll let you head off, celebrate with the lads. A very convincing victory for you and the crew.
Thanks, boys.
Well, gentlemen, we kick off the night with a rather convincing, rather one-sided affair. And look, Jordan, you basically summed it up. This is a return to equilibrium. What we expected on the whole, I think everyone, bar production, backed the Scorpions in that matchup. So going into the future, I mean, again, you just got to imagine that this is exactly what they're looking for heading towards playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously for Scorpions, there's bigger fish to fry, though. I think that one, it's like, all right, yep, we beat Action X, cool. Let's carry on and see what happens next week, because once we get into those games against Panthers and Sentinels in particular, and actually, dare I even say it, maybe even Comets, that's where it starts to get a little bit more important for Scorpions.
Well, right now, we are going to throw it to a break. When we come back, Cthulhu, we jump on into that extra spicy matchup, the battle for the bottom of the table. It's the Melbourne Matildas taken on the Cairns Comets. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
One trade overall.
After our last operation, Max von Krieger disappeared. But his technologies have not gone anywhere. Now they are in the hands of his daughter, Ermelinda. And she's more dangerous than you may think. And we have not faced an attack of this scale in over 6 years. You must neutralize his daughter. You must stop this invasion.
From September 26th through October 10th, a familiar mode is back to World of Tanks. This is the Waffenträger Legacy. To participate in this epic event, you will have access to 3 familiar vehicles. The versatile Resistor. Activating the railgun ability on this fierce fighter will decrease the accuracy of your next shot, but deal a lot more damage. The sturdy Thunderbolt will enable you to switch to siege mode for decreased dynamics, but far better damage per minute. And finally, we have the quick and auto-loading French Foudre. This tank is equipped with the ballistic dome that helps it avoid unnecessary damage. This time, 6 Harriers will be rolling into battle, each with an unlimited number of respawns, and the only penalty for losing your vehicle will be a longer respawn time. But don't get too comfortable and start losing your tanks left and right. Otherwise, you'll spend the battle on the waiting screen. Your opponent will be Ermelinda in the menacing Blitzträger Auf E-110. You can't stop it, damage its modules, or set it on fire. Plus, Ermelinda has got plenty of scientific tricks up her sleeve. She can stun your tank with an EMP arrow, or create an EMP burst if you get too close. And when she does, not even cover will save you. To add fuel to the flames, the Blitzträger can teleport to any point on the map, evading your strikes or sneaking up from behind. To stop this menacing beast, you will need to overload the generators that power its shield. You can see the Sentinels' camps on the map. Clear these camps to collect plasma and deliver it to a generator. This will overload the generator and weaken her shield, but you will need to be quick. Plasma will start evaporating from the second you pick it up. Stay at speeds above 50 kilometers per hour to slow this process down. After the generator is overloaded, the Blitzträger will lose its ability to teleport, and its shield will be temporarily disabled. This is your time to strike at full damage. Overload all 4 generators to remove the shield for good. A progression will be available during the Waffenträger Legacy event. By completing it, you can earn decals, inscriptions, camouflages, Days of World of Tanks premium account, bonds, crew members with unique voiceovers, the keys to the Blitzträger, and most importantly, this.
They're still trying to destroy my father's legacy. They have no idea what I've got in store for them. I have the ultimate weapon. And not just one. Thousands of them!
This is your chance to rent the Waffenträger Alf E100. Complete the entire progression to rent this legendary tank destroyer for 5 random battles. On top of that, you'll also get starters to open the Harrier's Gate. As well as starters for the Engineer's Gate, or purchase some bundles with visual elements to get starters as a gift. The Engineer's Gate contains the rarest and most valuable rewards, including rental battles in the Waffenträger, 3D styles, and even premium vehicles. Don't like your reward from the Engineer's Gate? You can always use gold to re-roll for a new one.
Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Map 1 done, with the Scorpions walking away with victory quite handily, but we turn our attention to the battle of the bottom of the table. And Jordan, I mean, this one, as much as it, is a chance, both teams realistically, in some miraculous way, could make playoffs, but the reality of the matter is, it's who can avoid relegations at this point.
Well, I mean, there is a bit of that, but there's also, I think actually the playoff spot, you say, is a bit of an outside chance, but actually, the way that Action X is playing, the way that Matilda's is playing, and the way that Comets are playing, it sort of feels to me like it really could be any one of those 3 teams. Like, I don't know that I have a great grasp on which of these 3 teams is stronger, and which of those is going to take that 4th playoff spot. At the moment, I'm actually going to give the benefit of the doubt to Comets in terms of form. So, yeah, I mean, I actually think this is a very important match for them. If they drop to Matilda's, then Matilda's is kind of back in that discussion. They're back in that race. Obviously, Action X, they had more points going into this week than both. But if Comets wins this, they are undisputably in 4th at the moment. And then they just have to hold on to that for the rest of the season. So, big opportunity for them here today.
And I mean, of course, on top of that, points-wise, if Matilda's can't pick up anything, Cthulhu, they find themselves a full victory clear of anyone else on the table, which is, I mean, that's a pretty big hurdle to overcome.
Absolutely, yeah. For Matilda's, this is going to be sort of make or break sort of deal, I reckon. If it is a full-blown loss, yeah, look, that's basically, well, chances for them to really make the playoffs, yeah, quite slim. Chances to get out of the relos, look, they still are, but they'll have to put up quite a fair bit of a show. But at least for them, say going into the remainder of the second half of the season, they could play a bit of a kingmaker as well.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at previous results, Matilda's having taken a victory over the Scorpions. In fact, their only victory, Jordan, that's, well, no, sorry, one of 2. But actually, no, that's wrong entirely. They've had a win at the tiebreaker and a loss in the tiebreaker, so they've gotten 3 points. But looking at this roster, the fact that they've got 2 players in the top, player leaderboard, surely it's only a matter of time before they start stringing the wins together.
Well, it's really weird, isn't it? I actually think, though, that in a lot of cases, the damage that's being put out and the points that are sort of being farmed by the Matilda's players is toward the back end of the rounds where the round is kind of already lost. So it's kind of like, I mean, it's a great little comparison to what we saw from JT in that last series, right? Where for some of these Matilda's players, like you'll see them alive at the end of the round every round pretty much. And they're farming up to 2.5k damage. And like, yeah, they're doing a great job. But you look at JT and you see him like dead first player, like pretty much twice, gets like 400 damage round. You're like, all right, well, he kind of sucks, I guess. But in reality, you know, I do feel like there is a world in a lot of cases where Matilda's is sort of not getting enough done in the early games, not working together as a team in a lot of instances. And they're just sort of putting themselves into really awkward situations where it's kind of unwinnable unless you see a big clutch. Like there was an instance last week where Whippet was in a clutch scenario, didn't manage to get it over the line, and as a result, Matilda's, you know, they struggled a little bit. But it's not as if they don't have good players. It just needs to come together in some way, shape, or form.
And of course, their opponents, the Comets on your screen, they're coming in, the newest team in the competition, Cthulhu. They pick up the win over Action X last week, but with recent results, you got to wonder how much there is to read into that.
Yeah, there's definitely, well, I'd still say that the way how Comets were able to conduct themselves basically meant that for them, they at least showing good signs of improvement. The main issue that has been sort of alluded even by Power is the inconsistency in terms of the core roster as to when all of them can really pop up, when all of them can really, you know, be in the tip-top shape, which is one of those things that really needs to be very much be cautious about. So, look, this is a roster that I definitely rate probably the highest out of the bottom three to really be able to make it in the current state of things into the playoffs.
And I mean, it was one of the big talking points of that victory over the Scorpions, Jordan, was that both teams in that matchup, the Scorpions and the Matildas, lent more into a slower, more strategic style of play, whereas the Comets have proven that they can be quite explosive, quite dynamic. Is that something that could be a problem for the Matildas coming into this matchup?
I think it kind of, a lot of this to me depends on how Matildas plays today, right? It's like, I think you kind of know what you're going to get from Comets. I feel like they play a pretty standard kind of game. They're not really doing anything too out there. But the Matildas, sometimes they just come in with the weirdest of strats and they just send it. So I think if they can kind of like, what's the word? Control themselves maybe a little bit. That's going to stand them in pretty good stead. They do play some good rounds, but then there's just this round where they like just drive out and try to take the Wolfpack fight, and it doesn't work for them. So look, I don't know. I really don't know. That's the problem with these teams, is I genuinely sometimes have no idea what's going on, and I can only hope for the best.
And we all know what control themselves mean. Jordan was nicely saying if they don't go on through tonight. But Cthulhu, looking at our two players that we're highlighting, Whippet and Power, of course, coming into this matchup. I mean, Whippet, he's sitting there top 5 alongside Crit. Power, he's not got the same numbers, but the fact that they're sitting higher in the leaderboard speaks to what could be our result tonight. But look, we'll forget all that. Going into the map, Vito, Cthulhu, you had some words to say about the picks coming into this.
Look, I remembering the unfortunate track record of Sand River and how turbo tilting it was for back then Conquerors, seeing Matilda's pick this map feels a little bit confusing is probably the only way for me to really describe this. Ghost Town and Tundra, though, completely understandable. These are the two maps that I reckon that could really see us in a very close contention. But given that also, for Matildas, we don't really see the full core roster playing, and it is Kiwi Dynamite joining as a sub. Things might be looking a little bit problematic, but given from what we've seen on the cameras, look, maybe at least the spirits seem to be running high.
Well, Jordan, we'll see if the Matildas are up a Sand River without a paddle.
I don't mind that one. Either way, let's see. Comets as well. Going to be bringing, I think, the exact same roster as what we saw last week, which was not a bad shout from them. So, happy to see that. Kiwi Dynamite, as you mentioned, is in for Matildas. You have Whippet, Critical, Mary Turnip, and Saxon to round the rest of the roster out. So it's, I suppose, Dark that was the member that was missing today, apart from
Yeah.
the usual core.
Dark and I think Joe.
Yeah, but Joe doesn't really
Yeah,
seem to
Joe.
play a huge amount of games.
Yeah, true. I was quite actually keen to see Dark perform tonight, given that he had quite a fair few times. Have seen some really big standout performances. Unfortunately, not today, but it does sort of present us with a good opportunity to have a look how will Kiwi Dynamite really play out in this roster, given that he is sort of one of those big exceptions where 2+2 had to unfortunately leave ANZPL, and the emergency injection of Kiwi Dynamite really came around. So. Look, there's still plenty of opportunities. So far, the way how I'm looking at the setup, this feels very sort of almost by the books sort of defense of Sand River, where you have the IS-7 hold down by the one flag, and the rest of the team sort of forming themselves up in the sort of northeast part of the map.
Yeah, pretty standard stuff.
Hmm.
IS-7, the most southern tank. Seen a few different tanks in that position. I mean, the STB one was one that used to get used a lot last season. Doesn't really seem to have been picked up as much this season to fill that role.
I did only just now notice, courtesy actually of Blue Panda pointing it out in the DMs, PP Power is introducing Kranwagen into the match, which has been somewhat recently nerfed. Funnily enough, Panda was thirsting for a Kran pick, so I suppose finally his wish has been fulfilled in that sort of term. But I don't hate this sort of setup for Kran, as long as obviously there is coverage from the KJ line.
We saw the Kranwagen a little bit last week as well, but sort of feels like really it's only getting pulled out now on Sand River, whereas you used to sort of see it a bit on Muro and what else? On Cliff, of course. Yeah, I know there was a little bit on Cliff too. So it sort of feels like it's more of a pocket pick rather than sort of a go-to in a lot of cases these days.
I love it though, because that does introduce a whole lot more variety. It sort of in certain sort of off-pick sort of moments, it is still a pretty solid tank, all things considered. Yes, it did get nerfed in the mobility, but it's still not complete. Sort of full death turtle sort of mode, like say for example the E3 kind of deal.
Like the south control that the Comets have started to establish. However, they got a little bit more work to do, don't they? And they've used a lot of time to get to the position that they're in, and this is where we start needing to get a bit of a wriggle on, and actually the positions that they're in now are the ones that are probably easier to get than the next ones that they're going to get to. And this is sort of what I'm talking about. PP Power having to make a cross out in the open. A couple of shots being missed by Matildas has actually made that relatively unpunished. I think you take that every day of the week. The only issue I see here for PP Power is Saxon's position is, I believe, unknown. So if PP Power goes up on this rise, Saxon's going to be able to get a free shot into the side as well. And that makes PP Power's position very precarious.
Sorry, hold on. Whippet just managed to only land a single shot out of his whole clip. That is almost depressing, I'll say that. Because it definitely looked like he was quite, almost rushing for that damage. There was a huge window of opportunity to be done to PP Power and punish him. But actually the position right now that the Kran is in, not the worst, not the best, but it's still very much workable. Yeah, the moment that Saxon gets discovered, though, by Arthur, things could really get turned around, because I think AMX will be able to sort of outgun the IS-7 here in terms of just the damage output. But the problem being is, how will the rest of the team really adjust? Because Whippet now has to technically really try to help Saxon in this position.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, a little bit earlier on, just even before the Kranwagen rotated, that Saxon in the position he is in is super weird to me. I have never seen anyone on the defense playing that position, let alone in an IS-7 that's going to be very slow to rotate back up. So the fact that Comets haven't really walked into that setup has now kind of put Matildas in a really bad spot, in my opinion. I think Saxon's a free kill here, and Comets are starting to recognize that as well. I mean, how do you get out as Saxon? I guess what they're hoping for is that if Comets dumps over to kill Saxon, that Whippet is going to be able to help him out and, potentially trade 1-for-1. But it's really not looking good at all. Critical, he's going to have to take that fight against PP Power, and his attention is sort of diverted for the moment. So really, this is a 2-on-3 for Whippet and Saxon, and Whippet's just going to decide that it's done and dusted, and actually he's getting farmed on the way out as well. So I'm not sure what that defensive setup is attempting to achieve for Matildas. We'll have to talk to them about it, but whatever the case, it has not worked, and Comets have just come through with the goods. Perfectly timed push, and now they've got a minute and 46 to kind of clean up the scrap, so to speak.
So, bit of a scary sort of situation, though, for the Comets, for both teams, actually, as a matter of fact. Matilda's got drained of their resources rather thoroughly, which begs for a bit of a question as to, well, what are they going to do now? Because Crit is now being pressured very thoroughly, and that is a lot of clip damage that came out from PP Power straight onto the S-Kong.
Whippet's got 4 shots in the clip, but he's only on 420 HP. So how is he going to be able to use that? 40 seconds on that base cap. Reset's going to have to come through for Matildas at some point. I mean, look, they do still have a full HP IS-7 to work with. So there may be a world where if they can get this reset, Matildas can still win the round. PP Power, he looks to go forward. Whippet in the bat chat, eliminated by Atherin. They've actually gotten off the cap now, the Comets. I mean, they are still sort of hedging their bets by keeping Atherin on there.
Oh.
But they do really want to finish off these kills very quickly. Mary Turnip.
Oh, Mary.
If he gets that reset, could still survive the next 30 seconds. Safi won't have enough in the clip to kill him, but can he even get the reset from this range, from this angle with an IS-7? I'm not sure, especially now that there's tanks in front of Atherin. He has to hit Atherin. He's the one with all the cap points, and end of the day, Mary Turnip's just not in a position to do it, and even if he were, Safi's going to block the shot. It was a HE shell. Didn't pen. Comets have won on the attack of Sand River.
Yeah.
Well,
what a turnout.
It seems to continue, gentlemen. Attack. It was much as the case was for Proc, that it's a defensive-sided affair. Once again, attack comes up trumps on Sand River. But, I mean, Jordan, you talked about Sax's position, and it really sort of just crumbled from there. They called in support. All of a sudden, Comets had angles on, and they were just pumping damage out.
I think you'd look at that and say that has to be some sort of counter read attempt or something like that, because to put an IS-7 in that position, to me, the only thing that you can be expecting is for someone to come up mid, and then that you can sort of establish a crossfire. If they come through the northern side of the map, as you normally would if you're sort of going for that northern cross, the IS-7 gets spotted from a mile away and is very, very isolated, and that's kind of what ended up happening. I thought it would actually potentially work when the Kranwagen did rotate into mid, but it didn't ever really get to a point where PP Power pushed up enough on that hill to actually get farmed by Saxon. So in the end, Saxon was kind of left high and dry. And I mean, yeah, Whippet 737 damage in the bat chat is just not really enough in that situation. If you're going to sacrifice Saxon, you better be hoping at least you're going to get a full clip down from the bat chat, as well as, 2 or 3 shots in from the IS-7. And so neither has really occurred there, unfortunately. And it's pretty much the end of Saxon for free. Whippet got pretty farmed on the way out as well. And aside from that, there wasn't really much else going on for Matildas. I mean, Mary Turnip, right at the end of that round, has full HP in the IS-7. But he can't do anything with it. And this is kind of what I'm talking about with regard to the Matildas. That it's an issue that seems to crop up a lot, is that their players are not all fighting at the same times. And there's so many instances where you see a team kind of losing, like they're losing the round, and then there's like 1 or 2 players that are still on full HP, and you're thinking, why?
Yeah, I mean, because it was a phenomenal read out of the Comets. They identified that, look, we're going to win this on the clock, throw bodies in front of the shots, and that's exactly what they did. But the one thing I want to look at from Matilda's, Crit's still putting up numbers. He's got, 3.5k damage, but unfortunately they couldn't capitalize on any of it.
Yeah, look, it is unfortunate. Yeah, well, in Crit's sort of position, he was in the perfect tank to farm up that damage and in a perfect position to kind of keep himself alive for as long as he could. Look, yeah, as it is unfortunate how things really went down for Matildas. For Comets, though, they managed to actually show quite a clinical sort of way of how to approach that top flag, how to really go for that capture. And I mean, personally for me, look, I farmed even in points for the Fantasy League because I had both Crit and Dark Knight, and both of them kind of actually came out on top really nicely.
Yeah, I mean, it seems unfortunate, you know, like, if not, I think Saxon's position, that could have been a vastly different affair because he also called in Whippet to support. They had such a long angle, they were able to pump the damage out onto him. See, unfortunately, that adjustment not quite paying out, but I mean, now going onto the attack, Jordan, do you reckon they can carry on with this trend of attacker win rates, or do we see another upset in terms of a defensive win?
I kind of feel actually that Comets can win this one on the defense. I don't know why it has been so attacking sided on Sand River, because historically speaking, there has been a bit more of a defensive bias than what we're seeing this season. So is it just a lot of anomalies in a row, or has something changed about the map that swings it to the attacker bias? I'm not too sure. But I think Comets is going to get... I think they're going to break it here. I think they've got the defense.
Well, the momentum is theirs. Cthulhu heading into it. They might just take the 2-0 to start this series off.
That as well, honestly, with the way how they've been improving just day by day, despite all the issues with the keeping the numbers up in terms of the player numbers, they definitely are looking very, very promising on the side of Matilda's. One would hope that, you know, the first round was not a turbo tilter and they will be able to recover, because the 1-1 will be still a really good ground for them to get back into the general sort of swing of things.
Of course. Safi, though, is going to spot them out pretty shortly and get a lot of info. Won't be ballsy enough to peek up over that ridge and fire any shots off, but he does have the backup of Dark Knight if Matilda's wanted to try to push in on him. So things well set up so far for Comets.
That is a stacked push. Hellfish, oh my god, I just only now realized it. They're looking, to basically just go for Pilski's ye old Unga Bunga rush and go for the push. So overmatch is upon us. At least I'm expecting here to at least one of the tanks to get traded out. But yeah, as it stands, that is in fact a lot of bounces.
And Safi's going to get away. I think at least two shells bounce off of Safi here. And because of that, you're going to have to see Critical rotating off to try to deal with him. A little bit too slow maybe on the rotate in here from Comet. Safi! He's still alive! Can he get one more shot off? No. Okay, that's bad news for Comets. If he could have gotten a little bit more, that would have been nice. AVP and Athra and Zula, they're going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting here. PP Power, of course, he's going to have to rotate his way in as well, but it's really down to AVP and Athra to try to survive as long as possible. Because this round is not over just yet. If Comets is able to take down Critical and Whip it, we're back to a 3-on-3. Atherin and AVP are doing a great job of juggling the aggro. But I just don't know if PP Power is going to be able to get there in time to have much of a meaningful input.
Yeah, AVP needed to have sunken at least one more shot in there to be able to make it much more meaningful. But as Atherin trying to fall back, that is basically a GG. So, yeah, look, Matilda's actually managed to break the pacing really, really well, whereas Comets, I like their setup, but it was intending for a much slower game, and they didn't really prepare themselves for that, big rush. At least good props from PP Power to make the double kill for himself.
Look, end of the day, that is something that you're going to have to expect against Matildas. It's kind of what I'm referring to in that pre-match, where sometimes they like to just group up and send it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This time, it has. Comets just a little bit too late to recognize what was coming for them, and that's ultimately what cost them.
I mean, welcome to the bum rush they full sent. I mean, the fact that Comets got info on and still weren't able to deal with it, and look, sometimes it's just the full send plays, the full court press that works out there, Jordan. They equalize up at a 1-1, and we carry on with a 100% attacker win rate.
We do, yeah. I mean, look, that one, I still feel like there could have definitely been a world where Comets actually would win that. If they're maybe just a little bit faster on the IS-7 rotation. If Safi somehow can get another couple of shots off, which, to be fair, he was probably lucky not to go down on that initial push to begin with. But end of the day, I don't think it's a bad result for Comets overall. Like, you're going to lose those kinds of rounds every now and then. It just happens. If Matildas get the right tanks in the right places and they do it quickly enough, there isn't that much. Like, I think saying, oh yeah, Comets need to be a bit faster on the rotation is a bit of a cop-out, because like it's very hard to make that rotation quickly enough when Matildas is just playing like that. I mean, granted, they had the info from Safi, because he had spotted at least probably 4 tanks on the push-up. But, it takes a little bit of time to mobilize. You really only have heavy tanks there as well for Comet, so it's not as if they can get across the map super quickly. So I don't like blame PP Power or anything for being there late. It's just sort of how it turned out.
Yeah, I mean, Matildas were aggressing so heavily that there was no real chance for Comets to react. But Cthulhu, Dark, that fantasy pick you were so confident about in the first round, not quite work it out in the second.
Yeah, look, fair enough. I mean, given that the circumstance under which the whole push really happened, we couldn't have really full-on expected for the turnout for Comets to really happen the way how it did. But look, I mean, it's at the very least, I have to say that whilst the initial sort of push definitely looked scrappy, I mean, those bounces and allowing Taffy to even stay alive for as long as he did was not particularly a great sign. But yeah, they managed to really execute it all really well. They moved together as a well-organized unit, which feels almost refreshing. And the problems that were plaguing Matildas for a while, where they didn't feel like a cohesive unit, more so as just a 5-stack of 5 solo players. This is finally, at least for a brief moment, feels like they kind of finally coming together to do it.
I mean, looking at Sand River as a whole, Jordan, given that it has a 100% win attack rate, do you think that maybe it's just a case of the layout of the map is so disadvantageous to defensive teams? They can't get the crossfires, they can't get those long lines of sight to set up some damage, or is it just a case of attackers can just do what we saw, get up aggressively and make moves?
I'm really not sure what it is, to be honest, because like I don't recall teams having this much trouble on the defense last season, so it's not as if it's an impossible map to defend on. Like it's starting to become yeah, but it's starting to get a bit egregious now, isn't it? Like, how many rounds have we actually seen? Is it like what, five on attack, a 10 on attack each, or like how many actual games of Sand River have we seen? Like 5 or 6 probably.
That would be our 7th.
Yeah, so 14 rounds on attack have been won this season. I mean, that's unbelievable to me. Like, even Muro defense back in the day, I would not have expected that.
Well, we go into map 2. It's tied up 1-1 as we head to Ghost Down. We might see another bum rush play here, though.
Oh, we might.
Yeah. Look, I mean, that would be quite a spectacle to be a witness if Matildas do end up doing that, but doesn't seem like, at least with the initial picks, it doesn't look like that, but yeah, nah, this is looking to be actually a brawler setup from Matildas, the way how I'm seeing it. I mean, E100, the IS-4, S-Conks, and the M454. Whereas you look at the Comets, I think Comets are actually banking a little bit more on mobility here for at least a fraction of it.
Well, I'd say you're probably right.
At least in terms
of
of
the 50B.
Yeah, the 50B and the 2 IS-7s.
Yeah, I mean, IS-7,
see some movement.
It motors around a little bit once it gets going. Takes a little while to get going, but once it's going, it's not too shabby. I mean, well, in the grand scheme of things, though, Matildas have taken a lot of that map control. We put up in the M454 up on the high ground. A fairly standard defensive setup, right? With a tank on sort of every key point of the map for the defense. You have someone watching north, you have someone watching south. You got the 3 tanks in toward the 1 and 2 flags, ready to sort of receive the push, the offensive, and then you'll see the other 2 sort of rotated in accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, this is so far sort of almost Comets trying to replicate what Matildas just did to them. I mean, trying to just bunch up together, trying to go for those pushes. Whilst, yes, look, a separated 50B is just waiting in the bushes to peek out and clip out somebody, but waiting to rendezvous with the full 4-stack at the very least should actually get quite spicy. Because, I mean, we look at the positioning of Matildas. IS-4 is currently out of the battle. AMX M454 is out of battle. E100 quite slow to really quickly rendezvous with either of the S-Conks. So ideally, if there is a read, there is a lonely S-Conk on F4, send it, by all means.
Looks like we are going to be seeing a bit of a send here from the Comet straight onto the cap. Critical's going to get 1 shot in, but that might be all the damage they take. The E100 shot hasn't really gone through. It did track Dark Knight, which slowed down the push and allowed Critical to get 1 more in, but when you look at it, that way, as far as a 2-for-1 exchange is concerned, that's really not too bad. Comets have gotten positioning, and now Critical's really under the pressure. He is getting pushed. You talked about a full send. We are getting that. He's going to try and go hull down behind this little pile of rubble, and has been given a bit of backup by Kiwi Dynamite that's going to send Comets back onto the flag. Was that an overcommitment from the Comets? Well, perhaps it was. They did get punished quite hard for it. Dark Knight's down to 523. Would it have been better off if they just stayed on the point and traded it out when Matildas looked for the reset?
Well, this is still, so far, a perfect setup for Comets, because they still have the 3 stack, well, now 2 stack on the flag, which continues to capture, and they pushing out to just get enough damage to get rid of Critical. So they still continuing to keep on pressure. They bouncing that sort of pressure, and yeah, this is perfect so far from Comets.
I really like what I'm seeing. I think they're working quite well as a team. Really, really well-coordinated pushes. Safi in this 50B is still on the reload, but he's actually got a big job to play here. If he can get another full clip out, that will be a dead whippet in just a second. And in fact, he's going to have even more damage to do onto another tank after that fact as well. So this is looking phenomenal right now for the Comets. They still have not lost a tank. And Saxon might well go down before Dark Knight even does, and this could be a full clean wipe from the Comets if that's the case. Because AVP is almost certainly going to get the better of Mary Turner, but eventually, finally, Safi drops. But that's going to be the only success that Matildas have here. Comets, what a decisive win. Really nice calculated pushes, and they had a couple of them too, so it's not as if it was like a fluke or anything like that. I think the calling in the Comets camp tonight is pretty good.
I mean, absolute confidence. They go for the full commit onto the hill. They identify the fact that they've dished out a decent amount of damage. And then, Jordan, they pull off the hill, commit to the fight, knowing that they have numbers.
Yeah. I mean, like, the first push, I was a bit like, ooh, you know, this is kind of okay if they kill Critical. And then they didn't kill Critical. And somehow they reset and actually get back onto the cap without losing a tank. And then they go for a push around the other side. And obviously that one's the one that works out for them. So... yeah, really calculated stuff in the end from Comets, and they seem to sort of know their limits.
And Cthulhu, those predictions at the moment, how are we feeling? A little bit sore, a little bit rough.
Oh, look, for all intents and purposes, it's for most of it, it confirmed that my initial predictions were all correct. And look, I'm just suffering from success at this point.
Look, you claim it where you can, but you looking at the numbers on the board. I mean, Safi survived for so long throughout that he only just goes down at the end, and they were still able to connect on so many shots. And it was just the fact that they isolated the fights, Jordan, and outmatched Matildas throughout the entirety of that flag hold.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a little bit more of an immobile lineup for Matildas as well, it has to be said. Something that Cthulhu commented on at the start of the round. And I think they found it quite difficult to get their tanks where they needed to be against the speed at which Comets was playing, right? They have a 50B, which is obviously inherently quite a mobile tank. And they don't really have that far to rotate with the rest of the lads, right? The M454s and the IS7s. They're already in the town, whereas Matildas, they're trying to bring a tank down from the north. They're trying to bring an IS4 across from the east, rather from the west, but you know, a bunch of muchness. They do take a long time to get into that fight, and even there, like Whippet, right? He's traveled so far to do no damage. It's not worked out at all for him, and yeah, for the Matildas in general. Like, just look at this, right? You can still see the AMX M454 and the IS4 both still on the rotation as this push is coming through for the Comets. Yep. Which means Critical and, you know, the other Super Conk are basically in a 2v4. Even now, tanks are not in positions to be fighting as a group. Comets wolfpacking their way around the map, running rings around Matildas, and playing with the time quite nicely, and recognizing that it's going to take a lot longer for the defenders to get there than what it would for them if they were on that push. So finding that overmatch and finding that win.
I mean, it's something you touched on at the very, very start of that round, Cthulhu. It was very much a brawler setup from both teams. We know that Whippet, he is very much an autoloader enthusiast. Do you reckon maybe it came down to their lineup, the tanks that they picked, that maybe cost them there a little?
It's a bit of combi where the lineup was, for the most of it, great. It's just the fact that the way how Matildas really set themselves up was for a very prolonged game where it will be, you know, the attacking team would poke around from one spot, poke around on the other, and would sort of give the good indication to Matildas as to where they need to group up and go for that sort of brawl. But unfortunately, both of those steps by Comets were skipped. And the Matilda's kind of just, well, guys, there's 5 of them. There's only 3 of us in the actual town. What are we going to do?
Well, heading into the final half of Ghost Town, Jordan, what do you reckon? Do we have the tiebreaker coming, or are Comets going to do it in 3?
Oh, look, I've been backing Comets all night tonight. I picked them in my prediction, and I think I'm going to back them here again. It was an attacking-sided win, which is not something that we've seen too much of, actually, on Ghost Town so far this season. It's generally been a defense-sided map, so, yeah, all signs pointing towards a Comets victory. Must be feeling pretty silly about changing your prediction up now, Cthulhu.
Look, I said it before, I'll say it again. Suffering from success, given that everyone stole my predictions initially, so it's all good. I'll gladly give those points away. You know, gotta keep up my sort of reputation as a reputable sort of predictor, at least in some shape or form. But as it stands, glad to see that Comets are managing to push through, and sort of us talking about, between Matilda's having problems in the sort of not mental but morale department, and Action X just miscalling. For Comets, this is the perfect time to really branch themselves out into the top 4 and claim themselves the playoffs.
AVP is going to get farmed here by Whippet.
Oh yeah.
And Whippet's not even spotted either. Okay, they need to get these shots connecting, which, to be fair, at this range in a bat chat is not the easiest of tasks.
Absolutely. I mean, you need to have like a very, very precise shots onto the AMX M4.
Look at that one.
That one was ambitious as heck.
Yeah.
That one was ambitious. But look, all things considered, right now, this is still, one of those positions where really we could find ourselves at a very sort of peculiar position, because yes, Comets, still could have a very solid ground to find themselves on the offensive. You look at the HP differential, only now has it been equalized. So Comets actually went into this with quite a decent sort of HP buffer. So going into any further brawls, I actually reckon they could still have a really solid chance here. But this is sort of a wall-on-wall almost brawl.
I'm very interested to see what this M454 that's sort of wrapping down the 7 line is going to be able to do. That's a very strong position to hold on the defense, I think. In Critical and Mary Turnip's perspective, they now can't really peek that angle anymore, because the M454 will just farm them if they do. There is a bit of cap pressure going on right now, and some damage starting to be exchanged back in the right direction, if you're a Comets fan at least.
Well, Matilda's trying to just almost play for the cap, but really both E100s are kind of just draining their positions in a rather unfortunate way. So also comes the question of just how well will we be able to spot any sort of further problems, because already 2k HP up, PP Power looking to go on a flank. That is going to be at least one more extra shot before he will start to get intercepted, but even then Dark Knight on the play, both him and AVP, as a matter of fact, to deal even more damage to Mary. I'm gonna be honest, yeah, Matildas are very much in the least comfortable position right now.
28 seconds required for the reset. Dark Knight and AVP, they're doing a good job of putting pressure onto Mary Turnip and Critical, which is going to allow PV Power to get in there for a good shot onto Kiwi Dynamite, but it's Saxon that they're looking for, really. He has a lot of that cap presence. And eventually, it's going to be taken down to just the 1 tank and fully reset eventually as well. 5 on 4. I think Comets from here, they should just be able to trade it out effectively. Saxon's in a 1 on 3. And it's really down to the M454s surviving as long as they can for the Comets, because that's kind of their weak side here. If they outlive Saxon, which they're going to do, Comets are in a very good position. It's now a 3 on 5. And slowly but surely, they will walk away with the win.
Very much so, yeah. Meanwhile, look, Matildas are still trying to fight back. AVP is actually being very well guarded here by Dark Knight. Thankfully, both of the M454s have a very high profile, so shouldn't be able to block the shots for each other. And in comes the cavalry, the W100 and the IS-7. will be very much so introducing the even more headache for Matildas, which means, well, Comets 3-1 would be a rather unfortunate turnout because, look, for Matildas, this would have been looking as a possibility for that return to form, to be able to get back into the swing of things. Now, they have quite a fair bit of a gap between themselves and the next position.
Here we don't go. I thought it was possible for a second. Safi was looking for it, definitely, but he's not going to get it in the end, though. That is going to be the win for the Comets. PP Power, he goes for the trick shot. Not going to work out this time. No one can pen Merry Turner. But PP Power doesn't care. He just rams him to death, and that is a 3-1 victory today for the Comets, and that is going to put them squarely in 4th place on the standings. Well above Matildas, definitely, and reasonably solid above the Action X as well.
And I mean, Cthulhu, it locks the Matildas in last place, guaranteed at least until the end of next week, and that's assuming that they pick up the win next week and then carry on with wins from there. But Comets, I mean, let's talk about it. That last round, the linchpin, Dark Knight, his push up the flank, was able to reset the timer. And then, it was just this opening that Matilda's provided that the Comets absolutely exploited.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Look, I mean, the positioning, the difference, rather, between what Comets did and what Matilda's did on Ghost Town basically meant that on the side of Comets, they were actively preventing any sort of re-entry into the town, any sort of re-entry towards those sort of comfortable positions to start taking the shots. Whereas for Matilda's, they left a lot of those positions unchecked, a lot of those spots very much open for the taking, and from there on it was very freely almost farmed up. Yes, you see, Mary, who managed to nearly push quite a fair bit of, well, almost 3k, same goes for Crit. The rest of the team, though, had a very unfortunate sort of result at the end of it all. Whereas you look at Comets, yeah, look, kind of all stable damage kind of coming out. Yes, looking to the bottom end of the leaderboard, Arthur and EVP didn't really have as much of an impact, but regardless of that, it was still an impact that was needed, where they kept on resetting, where they kept on pushing, joining the battles, and sort of at the end of it all, Comets actually kind of came to find their own almost identity here, where they sort of able to keep on varying the strats, keep on varying the levels of aggression that they're introducing, and almost, it, to a certain degree, almost feels like they have adapted the playstyle the Matildas were trying to make work for almost now 2 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan, that's exactly it. It definitely feels like Action X and Matilda's sort of falling to the same hurdles repeatedly this season, whereas Comets, I said they were that explosive, dynamic team, but after tonight, they've shown that they aren't just this one-dimensional team. They're not just blowing into an objective or blowing into a push. They can actually play both styles, the slow and the fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually if there is a one-dimensional team that's starting to crop up, it kind of is Matildas, right? They seem to be the team that really only has like one sort of thing to go back to default to that is going to get them round wins. Whereas Comets, they feel like they've developed a little bit more of a methodical style or a little bit more of a reserve style, and they're able to sort of work around what their opponent is doing and sort of play a little bit more of a standard game out, which I kind of like. I think it's a really good development from Comets so far this season. I think they should be very pleased with how they've performed so far.
And they've also shown a decent amount of innovation. Cthulhu, I mean, we saw the Kranwagen on Sand River, which, I mean, Jordan, you did say has seen a bit of play, but it's one of those, if you talk to the wider community, they're not the biggest fans of the Kranwagen right now, but if they can make it work, surely they can make anything work.
Very much so. Very much so, yeah. I mean, I think for Comets, the other big thing really that has been going for them is that really not a whole lot of people really expected them to, to perform. And they kind of kicked the season off in a very sort of slow way where they couldn't really find a whole lot of, big footing for themselves. Now that they're starting to really get into the general swing of things, now that they're starting to see the sort of almost the patterns for each one of the teams, we can start seeing them, finally climb out of that rut that was found for themselves at the beginning of it all, where they were struggling to find the numbers to even fill in. I mean, remembering the tragic second week of ANZ this season where they had to play 4v5. Now basically it's a roster that I was actually looking forward to watching develop, because with, players returning from the last season, players coming into it from BL. This is a really nice sort of fresh mixture of both talents and both worlds.
Yeah, and well, we are going to be having a bit of a chat with the man. It's about drive for him coming in from the Comets. It's power. Look, mate, you come in a very successful win there over the Matildas. Sort of talk us through it. You guys have been coming in the freshest team in the competition, and you guys, you're out of that relegation spot. How does it feel being where you are at the moment?
Oh, we're not out of relegations yet until the last game. So, yeah, I think that's 4th place now, but
It is.
we're going to go higher.
All right. Well, I mean, on that topic, is that now kind of the goal? Because I don't know if we asked you this question when you came into the season, but maybe you can give us a bit of a TLDR as to what you guys were thinking coming into the season as far as goals were concerned. And obviously now, probably a little bit more than halfway through the season, now that you're sort of sitting in 4th, what are you sort of hoping to achieve actually with this season? How far do you guys want to go? And like, how has actually things been with the team? Because obviously, as you mentioned last week, I think when we chatted with you, like it was difficult to sort of lock down a core 5 or whatever, but it sort of seems like now 2 weeks in a row you've had the same team together. Is it getting a bit better in that respect?
Yeah, game days we show up. That's about it.
Okay.
Goals wise, as long as you keep predicting the other team will keep winning. So
Well, actually, by the way, I predicted for you tonight. If you wanted to know,
It was
that
Cthulhu.
sounds very, very two-faced. Like you predicted us to lose all season, and then now you want us to win. Like,
I can change my opinions. That's fine. When new evidence is presented, I'm happy to renege on what my former opinion was. I have no qualms about that.
oh, that's all right then. As long as you admit you were wrong at some point.
Well, for
Call
the
that.
record, I kept on alluding to that throughout the majority of the broadcast. Elfish actually ended up yoinking a whole lot of the predictions for this one. But look, Power, we've been talking to you whenever we did get to actually talk to you during the interviews that you guys had a fair few times the issues with the numbers, with getting the people in. Are we finally over this hurdle? Is it now time to,
No.
actually focus? No? Okay, so we're still in that sort of stage and it's just sort of winging it with each day.
Yeah, like we're pretty happy if we rock up with 4 to scrims and then we grab one of the B League boys to jump in. So we look at it as training for the B League teams. But yeah, at the end of the day, scrims are working out what the strat works and what doesn't. So if we have a player from a B League team or another team that's capable of playing in PL, then there's no issue with that as long as we identify the strat, that the strengths and weaknesses of the strat, not so much can I win a 2v1 clutch? Well, you should never be in that situation. So as long as we show up to game day, that's pretty well it.
Well, look, yeah, nothing taken away from the victory. You guys make 4th. It was a very impressive showing from you guys. A lot of innovation. But look, Power, we'll give it to you. The floor is yours. Anyone you want to shout out?
Oh, yeah, the boys.
Yeah, the boys.
Yeah, the boys. The boys are the DJ Neck and the Fireflies. They're not too bad. I think they'll go well in B League this season. But yeah, Elfish, I actually do like your PUBG cast, so I actually tune in for you and Xenox.
Thanks.
So yeah, I don't fully hate on you just when we win and you predict against us.
Oh, well, if you keep playing the way you have been, we might be seeing a few more comments predictions. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, I won't complain with that.
All right. Look, Power, we'll let you head off and celebrate with the crew.
No worries, boys. Have a good night.
All right, gentlemen. What a character. You love to have those little chats. He's very straight to the point. No nonsense. You love to see it. But look, Comets in 4th for now. I did say you've escaped relegations for now. I didn't say completely, but Jordan, I mean, that's positive stuff from them. If nothing else, if they hold this position, they guarantee themselves next Premier League.
Yeah, look, 100%. I mean, I think if you're the team that's coming up from B League, the expectation is always going to be that you're going to struggle early on in the season because, in theory, all these other players, all these other teams have been exposed to ANZPL where you haven't, and you've been playing a lower level competition. So to make it through to playoffs in your first season, I think is a really, really good performance. I think that's a good goal to aim for. But in reality, for a lot of teams maybe in that position, just avoiding relegations is going to be a good result. So the fact they've even gone one step further and actually, for now, held on to a playoff spot is a really good positive sign. I'm quite happy.
Well, we'll see how happy you are going into our final match. Obviously, there's still fantasy and predictions to consider. But up after the break, the Perth Panthers taking on the North Sydney Sentinels. Don't go anywhere.
right now, completely isolating and eliminating CJ. This does make things a whole lot nicer, but in terms of just where Mendicant is...
He is in an IS-4 though, so quite a healthy, beefy tank. He is just not bouncing anything at the moment, is he though? Great focus fire from the Comets, and really good execution too. Yeah, I'm not really sure what Dongalord and Speed can hope to achieve. Dongalord's going to be going around first. He has got a little bit of extra HP to play with, so he can afford to eat that damage, and you'd probably make the argument this should be the last clip that he is able to get off, but that isn't really going to be much of a solace for AVP because he should be dead. In the end, he'll still get that last shot off onto somebody, Mendicant, by the looks of things. It kind of just comes down now to Speed. How long can he survive? He is going to go down at some point. He's the focus of fire, but he's also in an E100, which is a very healthy tank, a very armored tank as well.
Because AVP currently on low HP, Gloucester though as well, and about to fall. Trax as well, not feeling particularly too good. So right now, basically, we banking on the fact that, well, Comets are on the reload with 50B sort of still yet to clip out.
He's kind of backed himself into a corner a little bit because he's going to have to now take the fight. This is a very committed fight. He can't just like get the reset and run or anything like that. It's a good free shot into Dark Knight, but he's not actually going to be able to kill him, and that's going to be really problematic because now he's going to be on the reload. He's taken himself down to 800 HP. People Power's just going to try and chase him down, and there's just nothing that Dongalord can do.
Really, really bad news. And now Power is well pushing with the E5 out of all the things. Where are the Action X? What is happening, man?
Well, they're just so split across the map, and that's been the problem for them so far in this series.
Your talk about, trading out tit for tat might not actually come around as much as that would have been wanted, as Speed just got finished, and now the Supercom did get spotted as well. So now for Action X, this is looking like they need to collapse, they need to get rid of Mendicant, so at least it's only down to the 2 medium tanks, and from there on they could technically shield Dongalord with the 2 remaining tanks.
He can't go anywhere. Saf is done, and Dark Knight will be in about 3 seconds time, if not even faster than that. Once his reload does come through for Donga, does Safi get out without bleeding any more HP? Still lit. Trax actually able to track him as well. Safi's going to eat another one.
Surely.
Oh, that shot misses. Trax is going to be kicking himself. The issue is, of course, they do need to get that reset. You've got a CS63 working its way through the backside of the map. That information now, though, has gone over to Comets. A shot was fired, landed onto Mendicant in the M454, and he still remains on a 2-shot. A big, big difference compared to a 1-shot. The shots go through from the bad chats. The resets won't land. The Comets will win. It's a 3-1 for the Comets. And Action X, they unfortunately have not got enough done tonight.
It'll need to be a very, very worth sort of opportunity here, but the fact that it's a double push, won't really allow a lot of mobility, plus the back chat of Whip It. I mean, for Matildas, this is basically just them being presented with a cake. It's like, oh yeah, go claim it.
Trades are starting to come through, and in the end, the crossfire that was established by the Sentinels inevitably is going to get to be maybe a little bit too much for Matildas to work with. It's back to 3-on-3. Return, I have to imagine on the reload at the moment, isn't being able to put too much damage down, and if Dell drops, we're back to a numbers advantage for Matildas. With Merry Turnip, it should be the killing blow through here from Return. He hasn't been able to get it just yet. Trying to fire down is always a little bit difficult when you can't find the gun depression, but Return gets it eventually.
One more needs to fall here before Return gets to engage and gets the better of Crit, because this could be rather problematic. Finally turns around, actually could work out here, but the angling does not help here at all.
549 HP, Return. All he's going to need is one more shot. Dark gets the reload first, though. Good damage coming through on the cross shots, of course, from Sentinels is keeping that pressure on Matildas.
The Return just continuing to just dish out that damage, getting himself that damage going.
But if they go back and look at this one, I'm sure they can pretty readily figure out what went wrong. Rainbow still alive is perhaps one of those factors.
So
Matildas can't walk away with a significant lead. Sentinels able to regain a bit of composure. Joe Atora. I think Matildas have backed themselves into a corner, and Sentinels are very happy with how this is playing out. I don't think there's Matildas I don't think there's anything they can do about it. I genuinely don't. I think they've just lost. It's all gotten a bit messy for Matildas, hasn't it? Just the fact that Rainbow has gotten so far down.
With 2 down and 1 to go, we turn our attention to the final match of the evening. Of course, the Perth Panthers taking on the Sentinels. And look, Jordan, predictions-wise, I think this one's a pretty safe bet. But the Panthers have shown moments of brilliance.
Yeah.
There is potential still for that upset.
I want to say it's not an easy prediction, but what we saw last week from Panthers makes me think this is going to be pretty easy for Sentinels. I think there was a period probably 2 weeks ago where I would have said maybe Panthers can really challenge Scorpions and Sentinels, but if they can't get Scorpions over the line, I'm not sure that they're going to get Sentinels over the line. So I do think there is a possibility if Panthers is performing at their A game, at their 100%. Yeah, I think they can beat Sentinels, but I feel like 9 times out of 10, I'm probably backing Sentinels here.
And I mean, Cthulhu, looking back at week 4, at the time, it was a bit of a surprise that the Panthers were able to take down Action X. Now, looking back at what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, I think the opposite could be true. Coming into tonight, this one would arguably be another test like the Scorpions. But, look, probably a little bit harder if we're being honest with ourselves.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is going to be sort of the ultimate challenge for Panthers now that they've sort of fully shaken off the rust. Now that the almighty Bales have finally joined sort of the play. We could see either a really, really well sort of structured Panthers that could just get at the end of it all get picked apart by Sentinels, or Sentinels could completely revert from majority of their, big brain strats like Rainbow usually does and pull something closer to the similarity of what Matildas/Comets did and just completely, punch through whatever the defenses Panthers would set up. So as it stands, I think for Panthers, this is absolutely going to be the ultimate test of just how resilient they are and how quick they are on that decision making. And especially it will be sort of a test for players like JS, I reckon.
Well, let's get on into the team, shall we, and have a little bit of a deeper dive into who we'll be taking to the server today. The Panthers on your screen, I mean, they're sort of floating around that middle portion of the ladder. I mean, Jordan, at this stage, there is still that possibility that they could take out first going into the end of the season, but do you reckon more than likely the focus at the stage for them is just making sure that they're absolutely playoffs ready?
I think it's definitely just securing the playoffs perspective. I would say upper middle, by the way. Middle, it's like, all right, that's good, but I think they're upper middle. I feel like they are a cut above the 3 teams below them, but they're also maybe not quite at the level of Scorpions and Sentinels just yet. They can be, though, over the course of this season, and I think, like I've said, on their day, they definitely can be. We've already sort of seen some really, really good games from Panthers, but yeah, I don't know that they're going to be likely to walk away with a first seed. Maybe a second. If they could make it into the top 2, then I think that's kind of got to be the goal for them, right? Everyone comes in with an expectation, and for me now, the expectation for Panthers is probably top 3, most likely top 3. If they can get top 2, though, that's going to be where you really think, yep, they've done well. They've had a good season.
Well, I mean, Cthulhu, for them to take top 2, they'd have to surpass the Scorpions, who they got 3-1 last week by. What do you reckon the odds are of that with half a season to go?
Odds are, I'd say, actually still around sort of either 50-50 or sort of 40-60, with 40 being sort of the chance of actually, succeeding and pushing to that top 2. Whereas, I mean, you look at a team like Sentinels, they just well and truly already managed to solidify themselves. And I mean, under the lead of Rainbow, it's a roster that managed to actually come around really, really well, very sort of concise. And
not quite sure what the camera angles are for the Sentinels right now.
Their cameras are far from concise. Yeah, that's probably the one thing.
When you get done FaceTiming your family and you've got a tanks match straight after, I think is the general aesthetic that we're seeing at the Sentinels, right? Maybe it's a Sydney thing. I don't know. It's been so long since I was there. But I mean, coming into this matchup, Jordan, if there was one thing that you had to pin down for the Panthers, what is it that they absolutely need to do if they want a chance at taking out the victory tonight?
Oh, I mean, I think it's really activating their star players, isn't it, right? I mean, we've talked about it at length. We've talked about it plenty of times. Panthers have really, really good players on this roster. I don't think that there's necessarily a weak point on the team, but you've also got a couple of really bright stars in I think, Madhouse and Bales in particular. Obviously, they they kind of get put in roles that do sort of enable them with that. And then obviously JS, Goober, and Twit tend to be in the more sort of consistent tanks, you know, the heavy tanks, those kinds of roles. So if they're able to sort of activate players like Madhouse and put him in a position where he's going to be able to sort of show his individual flair, then I do really think that's going to be their win condition, alongside with obviously Bales. And I think that sort of in doing so, they also want to try to make sure that they're shutting down, again, the more consistent forces of the North Sydney Sentinels, in Returned in particular, having been really, really solid so far this season. I think obviously Rainbow in every game that he's going to play is going to be a real threat too. So to me, those are probably the 4 players that I'm really looking at in this particular matchup to be big difference makers.
And I mean, Cthulhu, it's something that Power did touch on in his interview. You should never plan to find yourself in a 1 versus 2, but we've already seen Madhouse be able to clutch those situations up. Do you reckon that, I mean, he's going to be able to bring that into this matchup against the Sentinels, especially contesting someone like Cindy coming into this, who we know, even when he is there, can show up?
I definitely think that Madhouse might just be that sort of person of caliber to really be able to take it against Sentinels. I mean, in the way how he's been able to almost flourish when things got to the point where he needs to step up, from his sort of conversion from being, you know, the captain and the leader of Brisbane Bulldogs, I actually reckon this timeline for himself has actually been much more prominent, where he's able to just, you know, keep on playing, keep on just chugging on with his own gameplay, and kind of the rest was just presented in a very, very eloquent way.
And look, there's so much to sort of go into this. Obviously, we've still got to get the maps up and going, but for the Panthers, Jordan, if you had to call it, where would you ideally, if you were the Panthers, what's your favored duo of maps that you'd be going to first?
I think they've been playing a lot of Proc so far this season. I'd guess that might be one of their maps that they'd be happy to get. Proc and Ghost Town seem to be the two that they've kind of enjoyed so far this season. They've had good results on Muro and Siegfried line as well, though, so we do get at least one of the two. I think Ghost Town's good for them. Cliff, on the other hand, hasn't really been too successful for Panthers this season, and I also think it's a really, really good map for the Sentinels. So I'm kind of looking at least hoping maybe that we get a 2-0 from Panthers on Ghost Town, because I would be expecting Cliff could be a 2-0 for Sentinels.
I mean, do you reckon that? Do you concur, Cthulhu? Is this sort of the best of a bad situation for the Panthers?
Yeah, I am of a similar opinion here, actually. Yeah, Ghost Town will be one of those maps that Panthers borderline will need like oxygen, basically, to really get themselves, you know, up and running, at least in the chance to really, you know, thwart the Sentinels sort of menace. Whereas on the side of Sentinels, as long as they can really just keep on going with their gameplay, even a 1-1 will basically, on Ghost Town, will basically be putting them in a really solid just contention for just a sort of a 2-mapper and call it a day.
I'm sorry, I just can't get over it. I think YMO needs a name change, because it should be Dirty Mo at the moment. That thing is just, it's feral. Surely there's some rule around facial hair like that.
Well, look, I mean, if they're going to let a host in with facial hair like that, then I don't think that they can really be policing the players either, so...
Are you going to tell Mac no? Are you going to tell someone as stacked as Mac that he can't wear the mustache?
Absolutely not. I mean, I've tried to in the past, and he won't take no for an answer, so I've kind of given up at this point. I've tried even gifting him a razor. Doesn't seem to work. I'll tell you what, though, when November does roll around, we might give it a crack ourselves and see how we go.
You haven't got anything to take off, though, Jordan.
Oh, yeah, but I've got something to put on, let me tell you.
Look, we'll see. I'm sure you'll get there like the rest of us. But Cthulhu, coming into this, you call it a 2-mapper. But, I mean, let's assume best case scenario. We go to Tundra, we go to the tiebreaker. Is that still just Sentinels putting the bow on it?
I want to say yes. Because with the way how things have been going for Sentinels, they certainly, if they are being pushed to the Tundra, I think they are the ones to be able to really recover themselves from the mental.
Well, it's a long way away for now. First up, though, we kick off with Ghost Town.
Do indeed, and it's going to be an important one for the Panthers. Like I said, Cthulhu, I think they need to put in a pretty good result on this map. Rainbow in the CS63 is already hightailing it toward the southern hill. Should be able to spot Bales out, but likely will also get spotted himself, and that is going to prompt him to turn away. really nicely timed turn as well. He did dodge one of those shells, but still eats one. And so, first blood drawn by the Panthers in this round.
Too bad. I mean, playing for that almost, I guess playing for response in the early stages actually worked out to a certain degree relatively well. But now that sort of the play that Sentinels are looking to do is apply pressure with those E100s, but stacking both of them on the same corner feels almost counterproductive, at least from the get-go. But with the way how actually Panthers rotating themselves, kind of almost begs for a bit of a question as to, well, say 2 flag push happen. Do we get to see sort of this happen? Because with the way how Rainbow currently being bullied by Bales, Sentinels are looking at possibility of completely even, you know, losing out their eyesight across sort of the town outskirts.
Yeah, look, it would be a very big problem if Rainbow got taken down or even got put to, you know, like one shot of HP or 2 shots of HP. Currently, he's probably sitting on about 3 or 4, depending on who's shooting at him. But if he goes any lower than that, it's going to start to become really problematic for Sentinels. He's not going to be able to lock down an angle, nor is he really going to be able to push and scout with any degree of confidence. So I kind of like that Sentinels here have tried to turn the attention away from Rainbow and start to put it onto the cap points. Indy has been sent forward and given that job. A little bit of an exchange there between Madhouse and Dell. Not quite going to go the way of Sentinels.
Yeah. So there is now that sort of the triple stack of the Panthers now sitting around the position that they are at. Almost feels like they will need to go for that a very almost too elaborate of a sort of flank around just to wedge that E100 on the cap out of that spot. And even then, they're running into the second E100 if they are going to go through, say, something like an F5 position. And then the AMX M454 as well will be able to pitch in. So that is a lot of problems that could be coming out of that one. The big, I think, decider that could really come out of this, if it's not the win by the cap, is the sort of the battle between Rainbow and Bales, because whichever team ends up actually coming out successful in terms of just not losing out their scouts, this is where I think the extra damage could really come in that could really change the tide.
JS really getting railed on that reset attempt. I mean, he did get the reset through, but he's now down to about 1k HP and is starting to look like a tank that'll fall over pretty quickly. Bales, as you mentioned, slowly but surely losing this fight against Rainbow as well. I mean, it's not a good engagement to be stuck in as a bat chat. This is not the fight that you really want to be taking. I think it's unwinnable for Bales, but I also don't think that he can get out of it at all now. Certainly not without really bleeding a significant portion of his HP. So a lot of it's really just going to come down to whether or not Panthers can get these resets effectively, bleed that timer down. There's still so much to play with, though, for Sentinels. I mean, they're up to, again, you know, 40% with 4 minutes left to go. That's going to draw out another reset for the Panthers, or a reset attempt at least. And you're probably going to have to deal with another 4, 5, 6 reset attempts as Panthers.
I mean, you say that Bales will be having a whole lot of trouble. What stops him from basically just disengaging from that battle against Rainbow?
I think he's permanent, isn't he?
Is he?
If he drives away from that hill, he is lit, and he's going to eat shells on the way out. At least 2.
And there's the U100 of Wymo as well that could be possibly having the opportunity to put a pot shot in there.
Yeah,
so
maybe. Yeah. So I just don't think Bales gets out without sacrificing so much HP that it's not worth it. He kind of has to stay there now, and at least he's also then, in turn, kind of tying up Rainbow. The push is going to come through for the Panthers, though, and they are, well, quite substantially losing this engagement right now. Madhouse is not in a bad spot to get some shots through, but unfortunately not really being able to do so. Now Rainbow has rotated off, but Bales has not. He doesn't know Rainbow's gone dark, and until Rainbow is spotted in this fight, Bales is going to remain where he is. Oh, he's actually made that call, started to move. But I just don't know if it's going to matter at this point. I think Panthers are slowly edging themselves out of this round, and inevitably, once that extra tank comes in, maybe there's a world where Sentinels just push this one over the line. That said, first blood does go the way of the Panthers, and, well, now it's kind of on to Wymo to start to clean up the scraps. God Mode survives on 45 HP, does have a damaged ammo rack, so not really going to be as effective with that extra gun in the game, but, I mean, Panthers are doing a great job of juggling the aggro right now, and Bales should come through with a full clip loaded. This could end up being really bad for the Sentinels. They bring it back to 3-on-2 with some good, quick trades, and all of a sudden, it debatably feels like anybody's game. I mean, it would have to be a clutch for Panthers to win it, but with Bales on about 1,000 HP, it's winnable. JS, he's a one-shot, but could still be quite valuable if he can get one shot through onto a reset potentially. Could be a huge difference maker with only 2 minutes left on the round.
And even if he can get rid of the return, this would be a possible chance. No, don't tell me that. Did God mode or Madhouse fall off? Madhouse flipped.
Oh, really? I did not see it.
Oh, no.
I wondered how Panthers had lost so many tanks so quickly, because it was kind of looking like they were actually edging ahead, and then all of a sudden Sentinels get some quick kills. I didn't even notice in all of that Madhouse had flipped, and that would not be the first time that Madhouse has thrown a game by flipping his tank or falling off a tank. You know, if you remember that Mines game back in probably what, season 4?
Yeah, last season, season 4, yeah, on Mines. I think it was actually almost against Warp.
Well, no reset, so that's game over.
Scorpions. Yeah, that's GG.
Gonna have to see that on the replay and just see how egregious that was. Like, if Madhouse had any substantial amount of HP, then that could have actually been the moment that threw it away for the Panthers. But Sentinels, they do have the 1-0 lead.
Oh dear. From a 1 versus 2 clutch in week 3 to flipping his tank. Rainbow, he's having a grand old time, it would seem, but I mean, it looked like it could have been a Panthers round, Cthulhu, but I mean, even for the majority of it, it still felt like Sentinels were still a step ahead.
Yeah, look, I mean, with the way how things been going sort of in the mid-game, I think, yeah, Sentinels managed to really solidify their position really, really well. I mean, with the fact that they had set up that crossfire, it was really well orchestrated by them, where they were able to output the damage from 2, if not 3 different positions. And so, as we saw, the reset, or rather attempted the reset, came around at a very, very heavy cost of HP. So, look, well played overall, and well played for even Rainbow for being able to duke out Bales the way how he did. And sort of by the end of it all, yeah, look, shout out to the 6th player, or rather, well, yeah, the 6th player of Sentinels, Madhouse, it seems.
Well, I mean, look, John, we'll put it to you. Do you reckon Madhouse surviving there 100% changes as a result of the round?
I have to see on the replay how much HP he had at that time. But, I mean, he's in a Super Conqueror, which, yes, in that kind of scenario, can really make a big difference, because they're in a brawl, right? And if you've got an extra Super Conqueror in the brawl, that's going to be a lot of DPM getting put down. He really hasn't done a whole lot there. 858 damage. So, I think, yeah, that could be a big difference maker. Like I said, I didn't see it happen. So I don't know how much HP he had. But if he was like a half HP Super Conk, that could be the round winner or loser for Panthers.
And I mean, look, it's got to be a bit tilting in the mental. Like, you're in a position where you could have won the round, and then old Madhouse does his, clutch or crumble and falls off, and then completely, waffles the round. Look, what do you reckon? What do you rate?
He was round the back, wasn't he?
I did miss that. All of a sudden, I just noticed 3 people.
I think he was full HP. I think he might have been close to full HP, if not full HP. I'm just watching it back on the replay now. He's making that rotate down the 7 line, and if this is where it happens, where he falls off the 7 line, then he's pretty much a full HP tank.
We'll see if we got the replay going.
If that is the case, that is the most unfortunate part.
Well, there he is beginning.
This is
early on.
Early. This is where I was talking about. If he flips like here somewhere, then yeah, he's pretty much a full HP tank out of the mix. 773.
Yeah, okay.
So he was fairly damaged.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Okay. So he didn't fully flip, did he? Or was he like, did he fall off and got stuck?
Fall off and got stuck, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
they
yeah.
I mean, 1500 effectively.
Yeah. Okay. So he did eventually just blow up. So he must have been upside down. Okay. He's a 1500 HP Super Kong. That makes a massive difference. That's a huge difference.
Well, I mean, the question, Can Panthers throw that off? Can they throw off the tilt and come into the second round, given that, by all rights, if Madhouse hadn't done a Madhouse, they probably should have won it?
I reckon they still might be in the running. Yeah, there's still a pretty solid chance for them to really play out the way how they wanted it to, especially now going on to their own offensive. I reckon they might just be able to do some funky business, because it's up to them to really gauge the attacking pace here, and it's up to them to really make that, well, decisive action.
Yeah, it's a disappointing one to lose for Panthers, because that's their defense of Ghost Town out the wazoo, and it being a bit of a defensive-sided map is going to make it, well, not only more difficult to now secure the 1-1, but potentially open the door up for a 2-0 for Sentinels. And having already sort of spoken at length about how good Sentinels are on Cliff, doesn't really put Panthers in a great position when we were talking about them almost needing the 2-0 here on Ghost Town. See what they can do on the attack, though. Very heavy lineup from them.
Yeah, there's still plenty of really ways to go about it, I reckon, and I don't think that Panthers are, by any stretch of imagination, are out of it. It will be, though, yeah, an absolutely uphill battle, and I'll definitely have to agree with you here. Offers that Cliff is definitely going to be a very dangerous venture. But I mean, I don't think this will be a complete washout in a similar way, say, how, Scorpions overpowered Panthers the other day. So I still think that there's going to be quite a fair bit of battle, quite a fair bit of, kind of messing around. The only difficulty being is that, well, the Sentinels came into this with a little bit of an extra HP buffer, so maybe that's where they might just be able to flex it, whereas on the side of Panthers, they need to show that decisiveness in the same way how they've done back, I believe, was it, week 3, week 4, where they managed to defeat AX. But that was AX at their sort of tippy top.
At their peak.
At their peak, yeah.
Well, it's far cry from that at the moment for Action X. And is it a far cry from that as well for Panthers, right? When we were sort of going into the game 2 weeks ago, we were like, yeah, the Panthers, they're looking sick. And then, obviously, they go on and they play against Scorpions last week. They lose 3-1. If they lose this series as well, it's like a couple of weeks in a row of losses for Panthers. To feel as though they've dropped off the pace a little bit. Obviously still early days, but they are playing against Sentinels. So, see what they can do. And I'm not really liking it so far. I feel like Twit is just going to get farmed here, one way or the other. That said, he's really drawn a lot of the focus of the Sentinels, and it's kind of allowed Panthers to just drive around and shoot 3 great shots into the back of Cindy. And in fact, actually, Twit is hull down there in the IS-7, assuming Return doesn't push over the top, which I'm kind of surprised he's not doing, actually, at this point. I suppose that's because he's got shots in onto Bales and God mode, and he'd rather take those, but it does feel as though it's an inevitability for Twit to go down. Ignite out there from Rainbow onto Madhouse by the looks of things. JS has caught Cindy. Twit's a dead man. It's a matter of time before Return gets that finishing blow, but I mean, the trades so far have been good for Panthers.
Yeah, this is where Panthers need to push, because Swith is actually able to survive for a brief moment longer and is able to bite back. Returned, yes, he will be able to find the finishing shot, and there it is, lit up in green. Yeah, there we go. There's the finishing shot. But now in comes the actual push towards, players like Del, players like Wimo. The problem being, though, all 3 of those players of Sentinels are currently very much all bunched up together, and Madhouse got set second time on fire.
Yeah, that's not very fun, but that is what you're going to get in a Super Conqueror. It's one of those tanks that does tend to get set on fire a little bit more often.
Config time.
Panthers are, I think, starting to fall off this one a little bit. It was looking good for a moment when they had the tank advantage, but Returned, as we said, was always going to get the better of Twit, and once he was able to do that, he's really opened himself up with a great firing angle. This is going to be a huge game from Returned. I mean, last game was a pretty good one too, but I don't know how much damage he's done. Certainly going to be getting there, though.
A bit, yeah. Plus now God Mode, yeah, exposing his side to the Return. He's now got basically the free farm position. Borderline almost like, pulling the Russian cosplay from the Prokhorovka with a Stritzwagen. So, yeah, this is a complete, cleanup crew from Sentinels, and yeah, 2-0 basically now ensures that we are going to be seeing a 2-mapper, because at this pace, Cliff is not looking very, very favorable here for Panthers.
Well, there you have it. 2-0 for the Sentinels on Ghost Town. It leaves Panthers in a pretty rough spot.
I think Madhouse's face says it all. I mean, that first round could have gone the Panthers' way. Not even remotely possible in the second. The Sentinels just outpaced. Unfortunately, I missed the first bit of it because I had to run to the bathroom. But I caught, from the 4 versus 4, and it was all Sentinels the entire way through. They were just connecting their shots. Their positioning was better. And I mean, Jordan, the only hope now is we have to see the map trade. Panthers have to go in and win Sentinel's map to take us to the tiebreaker.
Yeah, and they played Cliff only once so far this season, but the stats don't look too good for them on it. They did lose it 0-2. So it doesn't really fill me with a whole lot of confidence. I have a quick look at actually what the Sentinels are looking at here. Yeah, I mean, we said it was going to be a big game for return, and there you have it. 6k damage is really not too shabby. 75% win rate for Sentinels on Cliff this season. So I think we can probably wrap this series up.
Look, I'm not going to call it wrong. I think you're right on the money there. But Cthulhu, what is there to say? The Panthers, a very rough round 1, turns into a colossal crumble in round 2. Are we just going to get the 4-0 sweep here, do you reckon?
Might as well, look, honestly, at this point, with the way how things been unfortunately going for them, yeah, Sentinels are certainly very much dead set on getting themselves that 3-pointer no matter what. And I mean, the setups were read in very, very much perfectly. I mean, the return managed to farm up a perfect position. If not for his position, matter of fact, I think Panthers would have won the second round, but because there was return, because it was the M454 that was able to just absolutely outgun and outpace the I7, there's very much nothing that Twit could have done, even if he would have tried to, completely fall back and, run away. And because of that, because Return was able to basically conquer that whole hill, that was GG. I mean, yeah, 6k damage basically speaks for itself. He was very much of a key player to securing that win. Not to discredit the rest of the squad, but his damage basically was the key result here.
And I mean, Jordan, you said Panthers top mid team coming into this. Do you stand by that, or is this a case of it's the Sentinels? This is always how it was sort of going to go.
No, I think I stand by that. I mean, I would say if you put Panthers against, well, certainly if you put Panthers against Action X or Matildas right now, I would, with certainty say beat them. I would back them to beat Comets most of the time. So to me, that kind of puts them a little bit of a cut above those teams. And then when you're looking at them against Scorpions, I feel like that can be a 50-50 matchup. Scorpions, I'd probably give the benefit of the doubt most of the time. But, sometimes I feel like Scorpions is one of those teams that's kind of prone to off days. And I think on a day like that, Panthers definitely is going to be able to get the better of them. It's really only Sentinels, which I would say I'd almost not guarantee. Like, you can never guarantee anything in this game. But I'd say most of the time, Sentinels should be beating Panthers. So, taking that all into account, I think, yeah, they are still upper middle. But they're just not quite being able to make that jump to be on the same par as Scorpions and Sentinels right now.
And, I mean, it's a bizarre world that we live in, that Sentinels' only loss has been to Action X. But jumping on into our second match, gentlemen, this might be that final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, it definitely could be. I mean, look, 75% win rate on this map for the Sentinels this season. And they have quite a few reps on it as well. They've played it 4 times. Twice on defense, once on attack.
Yeah, something across those lines. Look, the way how Sentinels just in general played, the clip feels almost sort of similar way how it was mines for Scorpions.
Yeah, indeed. Maybe not quite to the same extent. I don't think Sentinels play it as much. It's a nice little cheeky shot in there from Bales. Return is not going to go for the hill climb, and actually Sentinels, they have identified that Bales is isolated. Oh dear. This is not good for the Panthers at all. Bales is just a dead man. I mean, look, he's not even going to get out of here alive, is he? Returned will try and chase him. It's going to go the way of Cindy, and that is the issue. that is the issue with making a push like this into the donut for the Panthers. It's if you're versing a decisive team, which is what Sentinels are, they are going to punish you for that. There's only a 5-second window, really, where you can do that. But they figured it out straight away, Sentinels, and they went. And JS, he tried to make a cross. He's getting farmed. God Mode's trying to make the cross. Everyone from Panthers is trying to make the cross. But the game's already lost. It's going to be a 3-0.
Yeah, Panthers tried to break the mold, but at the end of it all, yeah, this is a very quick, decisive, concise ending and a wrap up to the matchup. At this point, I think even Panthers sort of realized that, well, Ghost Town was their best chance, and both the rounds were thwarted, so might as well kind of almost say go next, start prepping for the next matchup, and see what can be done there.
Yeah, very disappointing, unfortunately, for the Panthers today. I mean, they could be at a 2-1 deficit right now if they would have at least won the attacking side of Ghost Town, which it looked like they possibly should have, possibly could have. But now the series is over, and they've got nothing really left to play for in this fourth round. So it's an unfortunate result, but Sentinels will be happy.
Sentinels will always be happy.
Oh dear, look, you gotta feel. You got to feel for the Panthers. You can see by the looks of their faces, I think there is a bit of it that stems from that first round, madhouse flipping, and things have just gotten worse and worse. Like, Cthulhu, I can only imagine the mental is a little bit in the bin at the moment. So, I mean, if not, like, what do? Do you just have a bit of fun in the final round?
At this point, yeah. Look, that's sort of the only way to really go about it. Yeah, just have some fun, enjoy yourself, and sort of, yeah, wrap it up at the end of it all. Yeah, look, unfortunately, Madhouse pulled off what we end up calling a napalm moment, and really, well, for Panthers, a bit of a turbo tilt moment there really happened. To a certain degree, well, maybe it wasn't fully to blame on Madhouse in the first round, but it certainly did sort of throw a bit of a spanner in their works. Which, look, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Gotta move on, can't really let that, get to their heads. Or maybe, look, Panthers will do similar thing to what, JT and Scorpions did, and sort of Russian played one bad game, benched the fella, and bring in some of the sub players.
I mean, Jordan, that first round of Sentinels, they read that phenomenally, identified that Bales was likely alone there in mid, and they just overwhelmed him. They just definitely seem to have the number of all their opponents in this competition so far.
I think it is this little peek up over the top bridge there that you see at the very start of that replay from return. He has a little bit of a look while the rest of the Sentinels players are still kind of getting there. He's obviously in the CS63. This is exactly what I'm talking about. He gets there first, and he can sort of see, and he can see whether or not, is there anyone at the rock behind Bales, or is there anyone kind of coming up the ramp? Doesn't really see anyone, and I think that is the kind of moment right there where they go, well, we haven't seen anyone. Chances are, if there was anyone behind him or any significant force behind him, Return probably would have been able to spot them out. So let's do it. And they make the correct call. It's kind of like you don't see anyone, so there's quote-unquote no information there, but that in itself is information that they must be somewhere else on the map. And yeah, good timing. Really, really nice call from the Sentinels.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest, there's really only so much to read into that round. The Panthers tried to do something. The Sentinels didn't let them do it whatsoever. They stormed through with the victory in the opening round. They secure the 3-point, or the 4 points guaranteed. Cthulhu, I mean, Panthers, the ideal situation is you brush it off for what it is. A loss to the Sentinels. The reason that they are first is quite evident at this stage. And you reckon they turn their attention to maybe bullying some of the teams lower down the leaderboard?
At this point, yeah. Look, that's basically sort of the idea is when you do get to play against teams like Matilda's, like Action X, like even Comets, yeah, this is where, for Panthers, this is a prime time to really, for the most of it, well, farm up, I guess, is one of the ways to really call it, some points to get themselves back into the general swing of things. But I mean, look, saying that you're top 3 teams is not a bad sort of thing, really. I mean, given that Scorpions and Sentinels, the way how they've been playing, it has been quite a clinical run.
Yeah, look, top 3 is where it's at. Who cares about who's in 4th right now? Gentlemen, take it away. Not for the marbles, but for a bit of fun.
Yeah, look for a little bit of confidence builder maybe for Panthers heading into next week as well. Like to see them get back on the horse. Is that a 50 beat? Interesting.
Look, 50Bs to be brought out. I don't mind it. Out of all the maps, actually, I think 50Bs on Cliff, they have a place to be. Sort of with the way how you can really play them out on either 1-2 line or a middle. Sort of both positions can be really well orchestrated. Not for Madhouse though. Poor man. Not only he got himself a shot into the fuel tank, as well as that ammo rack on top of it, so had to already use the repair kit.
Well, looks like Panthers are going to try and take a leaf out of the Sentinels book and just hold the W key, and actually not working out too badly, assuming they get rid of Wymo right here, right now.
Surely.
That job is going to go to who?
Twit.
JS goes straight past. Twit turns around to look at Dell. And Twit bounces the shot as well onto Wymo. It's a bit of miscommunication, a bit of poor execution on the behalf of Panthers. But Wymo absolutely should not be getting another shot off. Twit, I think, has fired another one. No, never mind. Wymo eventually does go down to Twit. But I think that it's taken a little bit too long for Panthers to get that kill. And it has allowed Sentinels to start to make their rotation. With that said, though, it hasn't really been a very effective rotation at all. Madhouse has done a really good job of holding off Dell. And it looks like the CS63 fight in mid is relatively even. Maybe just slightly favoring Bales in terms of the HP for a moment. Return does get another shot in, but this fight in mid actually largely does not decide anything.
That's true. Although there still should be a little bit of chip damage given that Madhouse is one shot. JS has technically 1 to 2 shots. If a high roll from something like a M454, well, or rather IS-7 here in case of Cindy, does land. But as it stands, actually, yeah, look, this is a very winnable situation for Panthers to at least not make it a full nil. Oh, no.
Where's Dell going?
Oh, Dell.
He's going to try and do his best Apple Wow impression there, I think. But in the end, Madhouse does find him. That's a bit of a throwback. Shoutouts if you remember. It's just Cindy and Returned. I mean, look, I did say that the fight between Return and Bales is going to be irrelevant. It may not be. Like, this shouldn't be winnable for Sentinels. But I can see a world where they could win it. Cindy with a damage ammo rack, maybe not. But, we've seen some weird stuff when teams have been going up against the Sentinels. If they don't dislodge Cindy right here, right now, you are giving Return a lot of opportunities to sort of farm. Well done, though, by the Panthers. And it looks like from here now they should secure their first round.
Yeah, look, at least some sort of consolidation here for them. But yeah, in reality, full set of points lost. Not a whole lot of ability to really move up on the leaderboard. But at the very least, they get to keep that sort of top 3 position for themselves. So it is what it is at the end of it all. Yeah, look, not the most impressed sort of turnout. But GG, well played for Sentinels.
Look, again, unfortunately, a case of too little, too late. But look, you got to commend the Panthers. They call in Coach Pilsky and get the full Unga Bunga rush going, and it does work in the end. But yeah, unfortunately, it's completely irrelevant. Dear Jordan.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it was a nice push. It was a nice sort of call in the end from Panthers. I think very similar to what Sentinels did on their attack. They kind of had an idea in mind, and they got a bit of info, and they recognized, yep, all right, we can actually take this fight, we can find the overmatch, and they decided to make what looks like quite an aggressive push, and they did make it work. A little bit of time taken to get the better of Wymo, but in the end, they do finish him off pretty comfortably. So, yeah, like I'm pretty happy with that from Panthers. It's just a shame, really, that they weren't able to win even one game on Ghost Town, and again, we sort of go back to it. It looked like it was going to be a winnable round for them. We could be going into a tiebreaker right here. We could be saying, yeah, Panthers, they've taken a point off of Sentinels. They've done really well already tonight. But unfortunately, we're not at that point. We've got the 3-1 victory for Sentinels, and it's business as usual, I guess.
I mean, that's the thing, though, Cthulhu. Realistically, we should have been looking likely for a tiebreaker if Madhouse hadn't fallen off on Ghost Town. Because of the way that was playing out, in a different reality, in a different time, we could have been going to Tundra.
And we could have gone to Chandra. You are very much correct here, Panda. But look,
thank you
at the end of it all,
yeah,
look, gotta sometimes share the love, at least somewhere. But look, honestly, I am curious what would have happened if Madhouse wouldn't have fallen, if that sort of battle in the first round would have continued. It could have changed the tide, or maybe it would have been completely all in vain, all for nothing, and it would have been still the same sort of result. But look, I definitely it makes me question this very matchup as to where do we stand in terms of just sort of the power rank, because with the way how Sentinels seem to be absolutely untouchable by their loss to Action X. Is there even any team that will be able to really contest with them? Really?
Well, I mean, the crazy thing to me, Jordan, is that's not the first time that Sentinels have lost to a rush on this map. You remember back week 4, ANZ opened the series with a very similar play. Were able to catch Sentinels out. So maybe it's a case of they deal well when they dictate the pace, but if they're caught out in the back foot, they're a team that can't quite stand up.
Well, I think the thing is with those kinds of strategies, inherently, it is a bit of a rock, paper, scissors. Like, if you don't have your tanks in a default position that works effectively against what's being thrown at you, most of the time you're not really going to have the time to actually rotate them across and do anything. And obviously that's where Sentinels tends to excel. Like, they excel in making the mid rounds and sort of playing out the slower game because they understand the limitations of their tanks a lot better than other teams and other players, and they make the effective calls a lot quicker. But sometimes it can be kind of an unwinnable scenario. Like, if your opponent just makes the right call at the right time, no matter how well you play it, sometimes you're just not going to win that. And I think the Comets round in particular was a great example of that. Really didn't matter what Sentinels did outside of not being there, which, like, if that's your default setup for that round, you can't say that's really like a counter strategy. It's not, oh, just don't be there. Like, all right, okay, thanks, bro. That was really helpful.
Yeah, just be somewhere else. It's a classic World of Tanks strategy. But Cthulhu, I mean, Sentinels were always the favourite coming into the season. Obviously, coming up at the back of the victory in the Grand Finals last season, coming in, I mean, definitely feels like maybe that Action X victory is just an outlier, one of those random occurrences that tends to happen in esports.
Definitely feels like it. Definitely sort of one of those moments that, we could chalk it to literally anything and it would feel, oh yeah, that seems about right.
Well, joining us from the Sentinels, it's Rainbow. Look, mate, it was a very interesting opening round. It looked like maybe it could have been a bit closer, but from there on out, it felt like you had the Panthers' numbers. How was it going tonight?
Yeah, it was good. The first game, we didn't really have a strat for a ghost town attack that we were confident with, so we kind of just played with our cameras the whole time and went into the game and was like, okay, shit. But it worked, and then that gave us a confidence boost, because without that, you got to win 3-1, right? So lose the first game, win the next two. That's what we've kind of been doing. We won the first game, so our confidence was through the roof. It was kind of already over.
I'm glad you're on top of it and you know that you need to win 3-1. I mean, that's always good to know that players are aware of their win cons. Speaking of which, obviously you guys have been winning a lot this season, right? You're at the top of the table. Doesn't really feel like anyone is contesting with Sentinels so much this season. I want to get your thoughts on, who you think is maybe the next closest behind you at the moment. Is it Scorpions as represented by the leaderboard, or have you got a soft spot for Panthers, or does it go further down? Who do you think is kind of the closest contender? Let's put it that way.
I mean, if Panthers are a bit more consistent, I'd probably put them at the top, but otherwise I'd say Scorpions would still be the in contention team, to be honest. Yeah.
Fair enough. Look, I mean, Cliff seems to be basically your home ground at this point. Say Scorpions, minus the Napalm moment like it was last season, take you on there. Do you still come out of this with full confidence, or are there still some caveats to it?
To the map?
Yeah.
Cliff's sort of our default. If we don't really have a new strat for another map, we'll just go, okay, we'll just play Cliff, and then you sort of like put 2 tanks that were in mid on the one line, and that's a whole new strat, and then you kind of just push in and win, and that's just that easy on Cliff. Otherwise, if we actually try and think about something new, or we get a scrim where we have any good ideas, we'll play a new map like Sand River we did last week. But otherwise, yeah, Cliff's a pretty easy default, or Himmelsdorf's a pretty easy default.
Well, look, Rainbow, another convincing win for the Sentinels. We'll hand it over to you. Anyone you'd like to shout out before we let you head off?
JS's mum.
There you go.
Look, straight to the point. Look, mate, we'll let you head off and enjoy the victory.
Cheers, thanks.
Oh, gentlemen, look, you love the characters here in the ANZ Premier League. Straight to the point, no nonsense. They get the job done, and they're out ready to go. Shout out to JS's mum. Obviously, it's great to have the support staff behind the scenes, whether that's family or actual coaches and all the rest of it. But look, so far tonight, I wouldn't have said that we necessarily had any upsets. Is this sort of how we expected Week 6 to go, Jordan?
Yes, I got all my predictions right for once. So that's the only answer I can give you. Yes, I did predict it. I did it. This is exactly how I expected it to go. Every week should actually go this way, to be honest, because all my predictions are actually right. It's just that the teams get them wrong normally. But finally, it's gone right this time. Yeah.
So Cthulhu, I think what Jordan is saying is that his copy-paste strategy worked very well today.
Very much so, yeah. Look, copy-paste strategy is always working great. Well done. Good job. But look, all things considered, yeah, it was a relatively expected sort of day. And look, yeah, this is sort of how we expected. Comets, yeah, on the rise. This is probably one of the more exciting storylines that I'm definitely keeping my eye out for.
Well, there you go. We've had a bit of an update on the fantasy. Jordan, you're still outside a podium finish. You're still in 4th.
I'm going to be honest. 4th is good. That was a horrible week for me. Actually, I don't even know what happened. Let me have a look. Oh, I came 31st this week. Okay, so last week I had the best team for that week. This week I had the 31st best team. So I think not dropping a single placement overall, I'm going to call that a win. I'm actually stoked with that, to be honest.
I have to say, Cthulhu, we'll ignore your result because it's outside of top 10, so it doesn't matter. But can you tell me who came 4th last season in Premier League? Exactly. No one can remember. No one remembers 4th. It doesn't matter. If you're not top 3, who cares? That's the real talking point. But
I can't remember, actually. Yeah. I was trying. I was really trying.
You can see the smoke, sparking there. Let's have a look at the results that we had here in Week 6 for tonight and how things played out, of course. 3-1s across the board. No tiebreakers whatsoever. And I mean, I suppose the big talking point tonight, Cthulhu, is, Adelaide and Melbourne really struggling at the moment.
Yeah, very much so, yeah. For Action X back to Struggle Town, as much as they wanted to really, change things around, to change sort of the general pacing, the lineup, things just seem to be still not really working out. Maybe they're getting closer. Look, I mean, even that second round still definitely looked rather promising, minus the unfortunate sort of end result of it all. But there are some, sort of small bits and pieces that shine through. Whereas for Matilda's, it was definitely quite a painful experience for them today, I reckon.
I mean, on the whole, Jordan, you got to admit the positives for the teams that won were reasonably positive. I mean, suppose counteracting the negatives that were there for the teams that lost. But I mean, you talk about the Cairns Comets, newest team in the competition. They've done reasonably well over the last couple of weeks. Like you said, top 4 at the moment, looking to push that playoff spot. And I mean, realistically, what do you reckon their odds are of potentially cracking top 3?
I wouldn't back them to get top 3. I mean, I think to do that, they would have to beat Panthers, who they've already played once this season, and lost 2-3-1. So unless they were able to, maybe claim a scalp off of Sentinels or Scorpions, it would sort of, require them to beat Panthers, which I think is probably unlikely in my opinion. But I mean, they've had 2 good weeks in a row, right? I mean, they beat Action X. They also beat Matildas this week. So if that's what they can achieve, if they can do that, then they're going to stay top 4. And I think that's got to be really, we've got to be happy with them staying top 4. I wouldn't ask of them to get to top 3. You know what I mean? Like, I think they've already achieved above my expectations. So whatever they get from here is really good.
I mean, for the freshest team in the competition, avoiding relegations is icing on the cake. Cthulhu, let's jump into the bin. How are we feeling at the minute?
Honestly, I'm still confident that next all the remainder of the predictions, I'll just not switch off for the actual purpose of entertainment, and will literally be able to overtake Elfish once again.
It must suck being second last on predictions. In the 1 week where predictions actually matter, and you got 2 wrong, I feel really bad for you.
Look, I feel really bad for you that you had to Control-C, Control-V. Really, that's all that you really needed to get the predictions right.
I mean, look, I think Jordan's just lucky that we changed at the start of the show. We could have left it as is, and it would have been a vastly different story.
Yeah.
Cthulhu, 8 at the moment. It could be worse. You could be Production, who didn't get a single. Oh, sorry, 9. You got 9. Yeah, you could be worse. You could be Production, who didn't get a single I mean, look, honestly, I think production was just straight throwing with the Action X pick.
Yep.
Basically.
I agree.
Basically. Look, I mean, it is what it is. I'll take the L gracefully and go into the next week and proceed to win. That's all that there is to it.
Oh, it is what it is. Let's have a look at the standings and see where teams currently find themselves as they look to kick off the second half of the round robin. The Sydney Sentinels up top, leading by 2 points. I mean, it has been a reasonably close following here between our two Sydney teams, Jordan. They are really neck and neck.
Yeah. Well, I guess sort of depends on whether or not Scorpions can beat Sentinels. Like, that's literally going to be the only matchup that, in theory, matters for them for the rest of the season. And they would have to do it cleanly. They would have to do it in a 3-1 or 4-0 fashion to be able to overtake Sentinels. Cause you can back Sentinels and Scorpions pretty much to beat everyone else. So unless there's a bit of a stumble for Sentinels, I think it is going to be quite tough for Scorpions to overtake them, even though it is only a 2-point deficit.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room as well. The Melbourne Matildas, two wins currently away from even contesting the next highest in the leaderboard, being Adelaide. And that would also require Adelaide to not pick up any points in the next 2 weeks. I mean, is this sort of how you expected things to be going for these two teams coming into the season?
Honestly, no. Especially after the start of the season, I definitely thought that Action X would be the ones to, very actively contesting that sort of fourth, if not third even position. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think with the way how things have been going, we are unfortunately sort of seeing that very much of a sort of downward spiral really there for them. So look, from here on out, I suppose sort of all eyes are not have moved from sort of Action X to the Comets to Panthers to see if they will be able to dethrone the current top two teams from Sydney and sort of get any sort of redemption. But I mean, even then, you look at Scorpions, you look at Sentinels, even if they do lose 1 or 2 matches, well, more so just one match for Scorpion even, they don't really get turned down into 3rd or 4th place at all. So they managed to secure themselves such a solid sort of advantage in terms of points that really there's barely a whole lot of pressure really on them.
I mean, there's a couple of races in the standings at the moment. Let's have a look at our matches for next week to see just how that race will go. And remember, obviously, we will be starting an hour later with the changes to daylight savings, but kicking it off, that's going to be a rough one. North Sydney Sentinels taking on Adelaide Action X. Match 2 will be South Sydney Scorpions taking on the Cairns Comets, and the Perth Panthers taking on the Melbourne Matildas to close out the night. And Jordan, I think you'd agree, the match of the evening will likely be that Scorpions versus Comets matchup.
Yeah. I mean, I think that one's probably the game that has the potential to be the closest. I think it's a really good test for Comets. Realistically, all 3 of these matches should be fairly one-sided, but Comets, they've gotten the better of Action X, they've gotten the better of Matildas, and now it's kind of like, all right, well, you can beat the 2 teams that are at the bottom of the table, but what can you do against one of the top teams? Can you actually take Scorpions to a tiebreaker? Can you take a round off of Scorpions? That's kind of what I'm going to be looking for from them next week. I'm not expecting them to win, but if they at least show a good game, it further continues to reinforce the storylines that we've been presenting for Comets.
I mean, Cthulhu, is there anything of these 3 matches that really stands out to you? Do you reckon we could potentially get a bit of a Melbourne Matildas dark horse moment against the Panthers?
I'll be honest, I'm going to be pressing X to doubt really on the ability of Matildas to be able to overcome Panthers, although they would have the ability to, kick them while they're down sort of deal. But the one that I'm definitely keeping my eye out for, that Scorpions versus Comets, definitely, look, on paper, Scorpions that will be coming out on top of Comets, but at the same time, I'm struggling to resist the urge to back up the underdogs, the boys sort of deal with Comets.
Well, look, if you are a die-hard Tanks fan, it's not over for the evening. Here in ANZ it is, but the Japanese Prem League is about to kick off in a few moments' time. And look, I'll be honest, Cthulhu, I'm a little envious. They have some ripper names in the competition. Match 1, the Tokyo Crows taking on the Chubu Thunderbirds. Match 2, Yokohama Sharks taking on Hokkaido Foxes. And then closing it out, 2 of the coolest names, the Fukuoka Bulls taking on the Osaka Krakens. I mean, it's so exciting seeing the future of Water Tanks competitive and seeing the Japanese jump into it.
Very much so, yeah. JPL so far has been providing some absolutely quality matches. And I mean, look, I already have my favorites in the Osaka Krakens. I mean, you know, it's all in the name. We're back our own.
Yeah, and look, if that isn't enough, obviously, we've even got the B League coming up on Monday once again. Round 2 will be there. Match 1, the Bundaberg Badgers taking on the Lismore Leopards. Match 2 is going to be an absolute blowout. We all know who's going to win that. It's going to be the Auckland Archers taking down the Canberra Centurions. No bias whatsoever. And then closing out Monday will be the Hawthorn Hellcats taking on the Fremantle Fireflies. And look, you heard some of the boys cheering them on. And a big shout out to Game On Oz who are handling that, and they've been putting out some ripper content for the the whole competition here in ANZ. You see their banner rocking around in the maps, but Cthulhu, I mean, it's great seeing these new fresh faces coming in and showing what they can do here in the B League.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, B League has been bringing in some interesting showcases of the talent, whether it's on the actual casting desk with us introducing some of our NZPL players to the broadcast, or whether it's, well, the actual players themselves in the B League, showing us some really, well, sometimes unconventional forms of warfare, sometimes very conventional, but very clean by the book sort of thing. So definitely B League is one of those really solid leagues where you get that sort of rise from the average sort of random battles enjoyer to the actual, Chad World of Tanks player.
And I mean, if we can see the Comets show up like they have so far this season, Jordan, surely there's big things coming out of the B League in the future.
Yeah, I mean, how deep does the talent pool run, I guess, is the question that you have to answer here. I didn't think that there was going to be a huge depth of talent within the ANZ region, but it turns out maybe there is. So I guess we'll have to see what happens next season, which team gets relegated and which team comes up.
Well, we're not going to dawdle too much longer. If you're keen for some more Tanks action, stick around. We'll be throwing it over the Japanese Prem League in just a moment. But for us here in ANZ, we are done. We'll see you next week for Week 7.
Does pan out Cthulhu. It is yet another game of Prokhorovka for Scorpions. It sort of seems to be their out Raspberry. They've spotted out the other IS-7 of Benny over on the sort of island, and now they've seen JT as well. So they're nowhere 3.
Yeah, this is a bit of an oversight there from Action X. Not really finding not really being colossal oversight here, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, you say that, but if they're actually able to take down Aussie and Benny, then it could well be worth it. The issue is, though, that Napalmer in that Super Kong is designed to farm tanks on this cross, and he does set Iron Guard on fire. Aussie able to survive. It was Benny to drop, but at the end of the day, it's really not been much of a round here at all, though, to be fair. So if you did pick Aussie, which stupid me, I took him out.
I was tempted, yeah. It was either the choice between him and JT, and I went with JT as well. But look, yeah, very sad storyline, at least in terms of the first round. Maybe on the defense is where they're gonna, bring it back, given that the attacking side has been very much of a struggle fest for a number of teams. So
I think we're probably just going to see Scorpions try to get a bit of pressure on this 2 flag and bait out a couple of peaks. JT shots.
I mean,
yeah, and in fact, actually, it just looks like it's going to be the dump straight over the top. JT, he feels like he's got an angle here, has taken a lot on the way in, but if they make this work, Scorpions, it is going to look like a bit of a masterstroke. JT almost certainly will go down. Raspberry trying to do his best to keep him safe. This could end up being a 2-for-1 trade. Scorpions just pen their shots. And he does go low. Aussie starting to eat a few shells from the cross as well, but Gloucester should be well and done, and the same can be said for Trax. So, end of the day, and he does go low. Aussie starting to eat a few shells from the cross as well, but Gloucester should be well to Aussie, which might even allow Aussie to get another shot through here. And that could not going to be able to cap out in time. I mean, Raspberry has managed to sort of chase down Iron Guard, and you can now start to see Napalm coming across. So, this is where it starts to get interesting. The Batchats and the CS63s are very far away. Have they got...
He might just be able to. He might just be able to. Pause.
Oh, he
no,
missed.
Misses. Oi, ay.
That should be unlosable.
He might just be able to. Pause.
Oh, he
no,
missed.
Misses. Oi, ay.
A lot of tanks this week than what we've seen from them in previous weeks. They're a little bit more decisive, a bit more proactive. They're really trying to force the issue on their defensive side, and I think this is catching Action X off guard pretty substantially. Dongalord going to come in and try to trade out JT, but it looks like he's bounced or missed that initial shot, and now he is just getting farmed as well. So maybe there is a world where Raspberry and Aussie go down here, but Scorpions have already won this round.
Yeah, the good thing is at least Gloucester should be able to find a finisher, so at least that's one of the... First is up, well, Gloucester is going to be on, and then Trax to be finished off. As it stands here, look, unfortunately for Action X, this is just looking...
Indeed. Gloucester is dead, and that's going to be the end of the series. So it's a 3 and... Indeed. Gloucester is dead, and that's going to be the end of the series. So it's a 3 and... Yes, indeed. Gloucester is dead, and that's going to be the end of the series. So it's a 3 and... Waiting for it, but I do wonder if Trax is watching in the direction of Raspberry. Does Napalmer get that first shot off? And does he win this 1v1? That's going to be a big win this 1v1. That's going to be a big difference maker. Benny as well. 2 shots left in the clip, down to a 1 shot. Napalmer did get the first shot across, so he should win this one-on-one. Trax does. Dongalord's down to a 1 shot. JT, can he slide that one through just to finish things off? Does look like that's going to be the case, and well,
right now on a very much of a borrowed time right now, because with CJ gunning for him, yeah, he is going to actually target him, but even then the clip is not enough.
Trading pretty effectively and looking okay, but there was a bunch of instances where, in particular, I think Benny got really far diverted for the moment. So really, this is a 2-on-3 for Whippet and Saxon, and Whippet's just going to decide that it's done and dusted, and actually he's getting farmed on the way. Atherin. They've actually gotten off the cap now, the Comets. I mean, they are still sort of hedging their bets by keeping Atherin on there. Oh. Even if he were, Safi's going to block the shot. It was a HE shell. Didn't pen. Comets have won on the attack of Sand River. Even if he were, Safi's going to block the shot. It was a HE shell. Didn't pen. Comets have won on the attack of Sand River. Didn't pen. Comets have won on the attack of Sand River. One on the attack of Sand River.
Well, it seems to continue, gentlemen. Attack.
But I just only now realized that they're looking, to basically just go for Pilski's ye old Unga Bunga match is upon us. At least I'm expecting here to at least one of the tanks to get traded out. But yeah,
see Critical rotating off to try to deal with him. A little bit too slow, maybe on the rotate in here from Comet. Safi, he's still alive. Can he get one more shot off? No. Okay, don't know if PP Power's going to be able to get there in time to have much of a meaningful input.
Yeah, AVP needed to have sunken at least one more shot in there to be able to make it much more meaningful. But as Atherin needed to have sunken at least one more shot in there to be able to make it much more meaningful. Really well. Whereas Comets, I like their setup, but it was intending for a much slower game, and they didn't really prepare. I like their setup, but it was intending for a much slower game, and they didn't really prepare themselves for that. Intending for a much slower game, and they didn't really prepare themselves for that, big rush. At least good props from PP Power to make the double kill for himself. At least good props from PP Power to make the double kill for himself.
Look, end of the day, which slowed down the push and allowed Critical to get one more in, but when you look at it that way, as far as a 2-for-1 exchange is concerned, that's really not too bad. Comets have got positioning, and now Critical's really under the pressure. He is getting pushed.
Now 2-stack on the flag, which continues to capture, and they pushing out to just get enough.
If he can get another full clip out, that will be a dead Whippet in just a second. And in fact, he's going to have even more damage to do onto another tank after that fact as well. So this is looking phenomenal right now for the Comets. They still have not. So this is looking phenomenal right now for the Comets. They still have not lost a tank. Certainly going to get the better of Merry Turner, but eventually, finally, Safi drops. But that's going to be the only success that Matildas have here. Comets. What a decisive win. Certainly going to get the better of Merry Turner, but eventually, finally, Safi drops. But that's going to be the only success that Matildas have here. Comets. What a decisive win. Safi drops. But that's going to be the only success that Matildas have here. There's a bit of cap pressure going on right now. And some damage starting to be... a good shot onto Kiwi Dynamite, but it's Saxon that they're looking for, really. He has a lot of that cap presence. And eventually, it's going to be taken down to just the one tank. And fully... Yeah. If they outlive Saxon, which they're going to do, Comets are in a
very much so, yeah. Meanwhile, look, Matildas are still trying to fight back. AVP is actually being very well guarded here by Dark Knight. Thankfully, both of the M454s have a very high pull. Will be very much so increasing even more headache for Matildas, which means would be a rather unfortunate turnout because for Matildas, this would have been looking as